Chapter 2245, Are you the silly one or am I the silly one? 2. However, after waiting for a long time, the giant snake only looked at him and did not speak. Instantly, Elder Yao Jiu became a little anxious. I say, when are you going to tell me the truth? Elder Yao Jiu urged. What's the hurry? I have to think of the right words. The snake leader glared at him and spoke with a slight dissatisfaction. Hearing this, Elder Yao Jiu wanted to vomit blood again. Fuck. This snake wasn't playing with him, was it? He actually had to choose his words. What the hell was this? Although he was very dissatisfied with the python's attitude, he was smart enough to endure it. After a long time, just as everyone was getting impatient, the snake finally spoke again. It's like this. Hundreds of thousands of years ago, one of my clan's ancestors was once killed by your Yao family's patriarch. Of course, at that time, the head of the Yao family was just a little kid in open crotch pants. Our old ancestor is also very young. However, it had died a terrible death. And this is all the good work of your Yao family's head. The snake leader's face was filled with hatred because this matter had affected them greatly. You must know, that ancestor of ours was the one with the best aptitude in our blue snake clan. If he had not fallen early, our blue snake clan would at least have a place among the divine realm's beast clans. But because your family head took a fancy to it, the old ancestor refused to acknowledge him as his master, so he was brutally killed by your family head. Don't you guys deserve to die? Shouldn't your Yao family be buried with our ancestor? The serpent continued, the hatred on its face growing deeper as it spoke. In fact, the matter of the ancestor was only what the elders in the clan wanted to spread. The snake didn't have a deep impression of it and had never thought of avenging the ancestor. After all, the strength of their clan and the Yao family was far inferior. But now, it was very happy to have such an opportunity to take revenge. From now on, their Azure Snake clan's status among the snake clan in the divine realm would definitely not be the lowest. At the thought of this, the snake leader felt a little excited. It had to be said that the snake leader's requirements were very low. As long as he was not at the bottom of the snake race, he would be satisfied. However, it would soon know how lucky the Azure Snake clan was. Elder Yao Jiu held back the urge to vomit blood. He barely managed to finish listening to the complaint of the leading snake, and the feeling of wanting to vomit blood grew even stronger. Fuck. After living for so long, he had never heard of a beastie who would come back for revenge n years later because of such a thing. This enmity. Wasn't it too long ago? Furthermore, what Elder Yao Jiu couldn't understand was why these snakes would seek revenge. Was it because of their numbers? Of course, it was not easy for him to face these snakes alone. However, for the master, these snakes were a piece of cake. Therefore, he could not guess what these snakes were relying on, so he had to deal with them carefully. Furthermore, it was because the Yao family was too useless. This fact also made him feel quite helpless. In fact, Elder Yao Jiu wasn't the only one who was so depressed that he wanted to vomit blood after hearing the python's words. The other family heads didn't know what kind of opinion they should express either. This matter was simply too fantasizing. It had been hundreds of thousands of years. Thanks, although it was never too late for a gentleman to take revenge 10 years later, it was not easy for these snakes to still remember this grudge so deeply after hundreds of thousands of years. After all, this enmity could not be any smaller given their status and position. This could not even be considered a grudge. This was because such incidents were not rare in the divine realm. In the immortal realm, the strong were always respected. Unless it was a human or a beast that no one dared to provoke, there were very few other races who would seek revenge if such a thing happened. Of course, it wasn't that he couldn't take revenge, but he had to at least do what he could before he took revenge. Otherwise, not only would he fail to take revenge, but he would also cause his clan to be exterminated. That would not be worth it. Although the few family heads present had different thoughts from Elder Yao Jiu and were mostly here to watch a good show, their opinions were basically the same. In addition, they were also very curious about why these snakes dared to find trouble with the Yao family today after enduring for hundreds of thousands of years. Unlike the other masters who were curious, the master of the Ning family was well aware of this, because he had already seen a red light quickly shuttling through the snakes. He didn't need to guess to know that the red light was his precious daughter's little red snake. It seemed that these snakes had been subdued by the little red snake. Otherwise, with the strength of these snakes, they would never have the courage to seek revenge on the Yao family. In addition, among these snakes, there seemed to be some of Shuai'er's snake-type beasts mixed in, because the Ning family's master found that when he observed the snakes, some of them actually blinked at him. This fact made Master Ning laugh in his heart. What a sly girl! It seemed like Shuai'er was determined to find trouble with the Yao family, but he didn't know how far she would go. He was looking forward to it. With such a thought, Master Ning became calmer and calmer. Don't you think that your Yao family should die? Shouldn't you be buried with our ancestor? Seeing that Elder Yao Jiu didn't respond for a long time, the snake leader couldn't help but ask again. He glared at Elder Yao Jiu with his huge snake eyes to show his anger. Elder Yao Jiu's face was constipated. This question was obviously very difficult for him. If he answered yes, it was obvious that he would boost other people's morale and diminish his own prestige. Moreover, if he really said that, even if the family head didn't punish him, he wouldn't have the face to see anyone in the future. But if he said no, this snake would probably go crazy. After pondering for a moment, Elder Yao Jiu made a wise decision to keep his mouth shut. As long as he didn't express his opinion, this snake couldn't possibly bite everyone it saw like a madman. He felt that if he delayed for some time, he would be able to hold on until the master returned. But his idea was good. However, reality was cruel. When the snake leader saw that Elder Yao Jiu was not in a good mood, the anger in his heart suddenly rose. With a fierce sweep of his huge tail, a huge tree in the large courtyard was cut in half by his tail. Elder Yao Jiu's heart ached when he saw this. One had to know that the tree was the family head's beloved item. If the head of the family came back and saw that his tree of love had been cut in half, who knew what would happen? However, the snake in the lead did not know about his worries. After venting its anger, it swung its thick and long tail again. In just a few seconds, more than half of the precious flowers and trees in the courtyard fell. Stop! Quickly stop! When Elder Yao Jiu saw this, he turned pale with fright. Oh my God! Was he courting death? Didn't he know that his family had loved these flowers and plants? He actually dared to cause such destruction. He really didn't want his life anymore. However, the leading snake didn't know what Elder Yao Jiu was thinking. Or rather, even if the snake knew, it wouldn't care. Who asked it to have such a strong backing? It was full of confidence, so it was even more unscrupulous in its destruction. Chapter 2246, Are You the Silly One or Am I the Silly One? 3. The other snakes, seeing that their leader's actions were very interesting, followed suit. In an instant, sand and stones flew and a strong wind blew. The Yao family's main residence was filled with broken flowers and willows, broken tiles and broken trees. The ninth elder's expression was as ugly as the Yao family's main residence. Stop! Damn it! All of you, stop! Elder Yao Jiu's ball-like body was jumping up and down, trying to stop the snakes from wreaking havoc. However, how could the snakes give him any face? The more he said this, the more the snakes started wreaking havoc. This fact caused Elder Yao Jiu to feel a lump in his throat. He couldn't breathe it out, nor could he swallow it down. His pale and chubby face turned red. When the Ning family's head saw this from not far away, he was truly worried that Elder Yao Jiu wouldn't be able to make it and would be suffocated to death by his own saliva. At least for now, it wasn't impossible. However, he had no intention of saving the dying and healing the injured. He was more interested in seeing how far these snakes could go. Oh! Everything so far was quite exciting. These snakes actually knew that the plants in the Yao family's main residence were one of the Yao family's old geezer's most precious treasures. Hee hee. He really wanted to see what kind of situation it would be when the Yao family's old man returned to see his treasure in ruins. Just as the master of the Ning family was secretly gloating, suddenly, a powerful pressure came toward the Yao family's main residence, accompanied by an angry roar, "Damn it! He Feng Shao actually dared to cause trouble in my Yao family." Needless to say, the person who spoke was the head of the Yao family. Although the voice had appeared, the head of the Ning family knew that the Yao family's old man was still a certain distance away from the Yao family's main residence. Otherwise, he wouldn't have chosen to speak out to deter them. Not long after this sound appeared, the Ning family's master and the others saw the snakes retreat in an unusually orderly manner. This fact made everyone dumbfounded. These snakes were clearly well trained. Elder Yao Jiu, who had originally heard the Yao family head's voice, didn't even have time to feel the joy in his heart when he saw these snakes trying to escape after causing trouble. He instantly became anxious and couldn't help but roar, "Damn it! Come back, don't run. If you have the guts, don't run. If you don't run, just wait for the Yao family's old man to kill you." The ball. Are you the one who's stupid or am I? Hearing Elder Yao Jiu's words, the giant snake in the lead deliberately turned its head and glanced at him before speaking. The disdain on its snake face was not concealed at all. After it finished speaking, the giant snake floated away. He didn't even take a single leaf from the Yao clan. Of course, before it left, it swung its thick tail. Immediately, everyone heard a loud clang. The sturdy walls of the Yao residence collapsed, and even the beautiful gate of the Yao residence was affected. Ugh! Seeing this scene, even the master of the Ning family sympathized with the Yao family. In this battle, although the snakes didn't hurt anyone from the Yao family, they had caused them to lose a lot of face. This was even more serious than killing the Yao family members because the old man of the Yao family cared about his face the most. When the head of the Yao family anxiously rushed back to the Yao family, he saw that the originally beautiful and luxurious main residence had actually been reduced to ruins. His lungs were about to explode from anger. Damn it! Who did this? The head of the Yao family roared, while the head of the Ning family and the others looked up at the sky. No one intended to speak. Patriarch, it was the Blue Snake clan. Elder Yao Jiu answered truthfully with a bitter expression. The Azure Snake clan? How dare they? No, how could they be so bold? The head of the Yao family was not stupid. The always timid Blue Snake clan would not dare and should not provoke the Yao family. After all, the difference in strength was obvious. After saying this, the head of the Yao family turned his eyes to the head of the Ning family and the others, hoping that they could give him an explanation. However, he obviously thought too highly of himself. The master of the Ning family and the others still didn't have the idea of paying attention to him, let alone giving him any explanation. At least in their eyes, they didn't have that obligation. Seeing them like this, the anger in the Yao family head's heart soared. He turned his gaze back to Elder Yao Jiu and roared, "You're a dead man. I'm asking you a question." "Master, I am not sure." Elder Yao Jiu said with an aggrieved expression. Why didn't he hear that the family head was asking him? However, of course, he couldn't say this out loud. Otherwise, the family head wouldn't have a way out. "Thanks, you're not sure. Then go and investigate." The head of the Yao family roared in exasperation. "Yes. Yes." Elder Yao Jiu hurriedly replied. Then, he turned around and wanted to leave this troublesome place. He didn't want to stay and be cannon fodder. Right now, the master was furious. However, he had only taken 2 steps when he was stopped by the Yao family's leader. "Wait. What about the great elder and the others? Such a big thing happened at home, and they didn't rush back. I've already sent them a message." Elder Yao Jiu spoke the truth. As for why they didn't return, that wasn't something he could decide. Naturally, he wouldn't take the blame for the great elder and the others. "They're spreading. Tell them to come back to the Yao family immediately, otherwise, don't ever come back." The head of the Yao family roared in anger. Yes. When Elder Yao Jiu heard this, he was secretly happy, but his expression remained unchanged. He respectfully bowed to his family head and quickly retreated. Don't blame him for not caring about the friendship of the same clan, it's really that he can't bear the anger of the family head alone. With this thought in mind, Elder Yao Jiu walked even faster. After Elder Yao Jiu left, the head of the Yao family once again turned his gaze to the head of the Ning family and the others. He said angrily, You've really gone too far. Are you just going to watch as outsiders come to the Yao clan to cause trouble? Old man Yao, those people are not outsiders. They're here to settle the score with you because of your ill-fated relationship from hundreds of thousands of years ago. We naturally can't interfere. Besides, we can't be considered as your wives. For the sake of the antidote for our clan, we can't interfere. AI. But then again, because of your sudden return, you scared them away and caused us to lose our antidote. So, you have to compensate us. The head of the Cheng clan said with a look of dissatisfaction. He was really a little angry, and he didn't mean to anger the head of the Yao family. Because those snakes had escaped in a hurry, they had indeed forgotten to leave the antidote. When the head of the Yao family heard this, he was so angry that his blood flowed backward, but the words that made him even more vomit blood were still coming. The master of the Ning family then said, Old man Yao. I heard that you went to investigate the poisoning incident, but it seems that there's no need to investigate the murderer anymore. It's these vengeful snakes. So, I hereby declare that this matter has nothing to do with my shuai. Whoever wants to frame my precious daughter, I'll be the first one to deal with him. With that, Master Ning's aura skyrocketed, making everyone's heart tremble. They believed that Master Ning was telling the truth. Yes, the truth is out now. Because of your old affairs from hundreds of thousands of years ago, our 4 families have also fallen. Old man Yao, shouldn't we have a good talk about this matter? The master of the Yin family also hit him when he was down, If he didn't hit the dog that was down now, when else could he wait? Following that, the Lu family's head also expressed his dissatisfaction. However, he only snorted coldly and stared unblinkingly at the Yao family's head. His meaning was also very obvious, and his face was red with the words seek compensation. The heads of the Yu, Fan, and Qi families, seeing that they had nothing to do with this, all chose to remain silent. This was not the time to stand out. If they offended the head of the Yao family too much, they might be stabbed by him at any time. Therefore, the 3 families were very cautious about this. Hearing them criticize him one by one, the face of the Yao family head changed like a palette. One moment red, one moment white, one moment black, and the 2 small flames burning in his eyes made it obvious that he was angry at the moment. However, the few people present were the family heads of the 8 great divine regions. They naturally pretended not to see his anger, especially the master of the Qing family and the master of the Yin family. The 2 of them were talking and laughing, and it was only natural for him to anger others. The master of the Ning family was the calmest one among them. Who asked him to be the most powerful? He didn't believe that the old man of the Yao family would dare to do anything to him, even if the other party had already revealed an expression that looked like he wanted to eat him up. Just like that, the few of them stared at each other and no one said a word. Master, it's time for lunch. Suddenly, a gentle female voice sounded out of thin air. Everyone looked up at the sun hanging in the sky and remembered that it was already noon. However, as a god, they really did not have the habit of eating 3 meals a day, but the master of the Ning family was obviously different from them. He was very punctual. Oh yeah. It's time for lunch, sigh. I'm sure the old man from the Yao family won't keep us for dinner today, so I'd better go back and eat. I'll come back in the afternoon after lunch. The master of the Ning family frowned and thought for a while before saying. After he finished speaking, he really left without any hesitation. He didn't even look at the head of the Yao family who had a dark expression on his face. Old man Ning, wait for me. I'm going to get a free meal. The head of the Cheng family hurriedly followed. When the other family heads saw this, they also tactfully left. Chapter 2247, Furious. 1. Watching Master Ning and the others leave, Master Yao had no way to vent his anger. In an instant, the coldness in the Yao family was suppressed to the extreme. The members of the Yao family in the mansion didn't even dare to breathe loudly. They could only clean up the mess with their tails between their legs, because they knew that the consequences would be very serious if Master was angry. The head of the Yao family, like a trapped beast, kept circling around the courtyard. At this moment, he had no time to care about the flowers and grass. His mind was full of thoughts on how to get back at them. Now, their Yao family was the leader of the 8 great divine regions, so he absolutely couldn't lose face to a few little bugs. However, no matter how much he thought about it, he still couldn't think of a good idea. What made him even angrier was that when he used his divine sense to scan the Yao family's divine realm, he didn't find any traces of those snakes. How was this possible? How could those snakes be so fast? Had he already escaped from the Yao family's divine realm? When he thought of this possibility, the anger in the Yao family's head grew even deeper. In fact, he had guessed wrong. Not only did the snakes not leave the Yao family's divine realm, but they even captured the Yao family's first elder and the others alive right under his nose. And the reason why he couldn't find the whereabouts of those snakes was also because of Tsang. With Tsang here, it would be a wonder if his spiritual sense could find the target. At this moment, at the same cliff, a familiar scene was unfolding. However, the people hanging on the cliff had changed from the thief to the Yao family's first elder and the others. Although the Yao family's first elder and the others were much stronger than Thief, even reverent god-level cultivators would feel the same pressure when facing the abyss at the bottom of the cliff, especially when they were hanging upside down with their heads facing down. All the blood was concentrated on their heads, so they could see the dark abyss without even looking up. What was even more detestable was that the snakes that were acting as ropes were deliberately swaying them. The more timid ones had already begun to foam at the mouth, but the great elder and the others, who were still conscious, felt aggrieved. Fuck. As the elders of the Yao family, they had always flaunted their presence in the Yao family's territory, but now, it was still their own territory, but they were in such a sorry state. Such a huge contrast made them unable to accept it. How dare you? Do you know who we are? How dare you treat us like this? I think you damn snakes really don't want to live. The Yao family's first elder, who was hanging upside down, roared with unusual anger. When they had been captured, they had not been mentally prepared at all, and the other party's actions had been done in one go, as smooth as floating clouds and flowing water. Thus, the Yao family's first elder was stunned for a long time before he finally reacted. And the first thing he reacted to was naturally to pull out a tiger's skin to make a big flag. However, it was clear that the snakes present learned their bad ways very quickly. When they heard the great elder's words, they all laughed and looked at the Yao family's great elder with naked and undisguised contempt. The snake in the lead laughed so hard that it was about to cramp up. After it had enough, the snake said kindly, "Little old man, of course we know who you are. Otherwise, we wouldn't have captured you." Did they catch him because they knew? Weren't they their enemies? No. To be more precise, he was the enemy of the Yao family. Thanks after the first elder reacted, he immediately guessed this fact. At the same time, he thought of the recent poisoning incident in the Yao family. What else was there to not understand? After all, he was very smart. What kind of enmity do you have with the Yao family? Were you the ones who poisoned the Yao family? Forcing himself to calm down, the first elder of the Yao family asked. Little old man, is there any benefit in answering your question? The leading snake smiled, obviously not intending to obediently answer the Yao clan's first elder's question. Hearing this, the Yao clan's first elder really wanted to curse. Fuck. After being caught, wasn't it something that every person who was caught would do? And the person or beast who caught them should also have the obligation to answer their questions, right? Why was it so difficult for him to ask a question when it came to these snakes? The Yao family's first elder was very depressed, especially when he thought about how he had been caught recently. He was so depressed that he wanted to vomit blood. Could it be that his birth date was bad? Otherwise, why would such things always happen to him? He couldn't understand even if he cracked his head. After a long while, he took a few deep breaths and asked again, pretending to be calm, "You're not going to answer me if there's no benefit?" That's a must. In this day and age, who would do something without any benefits? The snake leader asked matter-of-factly, not caring if the Yao clan's grand elder would vomit blood after hearing this. He continued, "Little old man, don't you pretend to be poor in front of me. I know you're the Yao family's richest first elder, and you've been collecting a lot of good things over the years. So, hurry up and hand over your collection, and I promise you'll get it right." Was this a bandit? Which beastie would rob so brazenly? Moreover, the one who robbed them was the Yao clan's first elder. No one would believe this. More importantly, if others knew that he was so useless, how could he face others in the future? When the Yao clan's first elder thought of the severe consequences, his face immediately darkened. However, the snake in the lead was still very understanding. It touched the head of the Yao family's first elder with its tail and comforted him, "Old man, don't be afraid. I won't tell anyone about this. So, don't worry, and hand over your assets to me. Only then will I let you live, and with your life, you will have the opportunity to earn more money in the future." Think about it, don't you think so? This was the truth. However, these words came out of the mouth of the robbing beastie. No matter how he heard it, it felt a little strange. Moreover, the Yao family's first elder was not willing to be robbed so easily. If that happened, he would also lose face. Especially when there were so many Yao family members here. After the Yao family grand elder fell silent, the giant snake did not rush him either. It just stared at the Yao family grand elder with its huge, gloomy, and cold eyes, its face full of anticipation. After a long while, the snake leader added, "We won't just take your property. Everyone here has to leave some money to live." After saying that, the python even laughed. Hearing this, the Yao clan's first elder asked in a hot-headed manner, "What if you don't have money? If you don't have money, then leave your life, or wait for your family head to come and redeem you. In short, don't even think about leaving so easily." The leader of the large serpents said with a firm will, Master won't let you off, so you'd better let us go obediently. I might even help you plead for Master to spare you." The first elder of the Yao family quickly said when he thought of his master. However, his words did not scare the leading snake. The snake laughed charmingly and even winked at the Yao clan's grand elder. Then, it said indifferently, "Thank you. However, we don't need it. In fact, we've already visited the Yao family. Didn't you receive the notice? Do you have no sense of existence in the Yao family? AI. What a pitiful child. Why don't you follow me in the future?" Chapter 2248, Furious, 2, It's you guys. The Yao clan's first elder was dumbfounded after hearing the words of the snake leader. He had received a voice transmission from the ninth elder saying that the main residence had been attacked. However, the ninth elder didn't make it clear, so he didn't know who dared to cause trouble in the Yao family. He hurriedly rushed back with the elders beside him, but they were caught by these snakes as soon as they entered the city. It wasn't until now that he knew that these snakes were the bold and presumptuous people who had come to cause trouble in the Yao family. This fact made him choke on the words he wanted to say to the snake leader to release them. Since these snakes dared to cause trouble at the Yao family, they must be desperados, so why would they care about his threat? When the Yao clan's first elder thought of this, he became depressed and immediately wilted. Looking at the Yao family's listless first elder, the snake leader pretended to be worried and said, "Old man, are you all right? Please don't take things too hard. We only have a grudge against your family head, and we won't take your little lives so easily. To you, we only seek wealth." These words didn't make the Yao family's first elder raise his spirits. When the snake leader saw this, he became extremely worried. He quickly took the great elder from the tail and began to shake him violently. As he shook him, he shouted with all his might, "Little old man, wake up. You can't take things too hard. The violent shaking soon made the Yao clan's first elder dizzy, and his stomach churned. Don't shake. The Yao family's first elder, whose face was extremely pale, said weakly. This damn snake must have done it on purpose. Fortunately, there was nothing in his stomach. Otherwise, he would have vomited long ago. But when the snake leader heard these words, it seemed to not hear anything and continued to sway with great strength. Not long after, the great elder frothed at the mouth as he had wished and fainted. Before he fainted, the only thought in his mind was that this stinky snake had done it on purpose. Seeing that the Yao clan's first elder had fainted, the snake leader threw him onto another snake's tail in disdain and went to find its new king. On a giant tree not far away, a little red snake with a crystal-like body was lying on the tree. At this time, the little red snake was coiled up on a high tree branch, watching the show. The big snake in the lead slid to its side and said in a low voice with a charming face, "Wang, most of the Yao clan's people have fainted. What do we do next?" "You fainted? Wake him up again. Have you forgotten what I told you? We're here for money, so you have to find a way to get their money. Otherwise, wouldn't our efforts be in vain?" The little red snake, whose entire body was like a red silk, raised its eyes slightly and said indifferently. It wanted to let the woman know that it could also make money. "I want eat for free." This thought made it treat the Yao family as a big fat sheep waiting to be slaughtered. As long as it thought about how it was going to make money, it was very excited. Wang Yingming. Seeing that the little red snake seemed to be in a good mood, the leader of the large snakes immediately said with a fawning expression. "It's good that you know. In the future, you have to follow my orders, understand?" The little red snake raised its head high and said arrogantly. "Yes. The Azure Snake clan will definitely follow the king's lead." The leader of the snakes expressed his loyalty. The little red snake was also very satisfied with this somewhat stupid but obedient subordinate of its. Thanks. The little red snake was about to close its eyes when it suddenly smelled a familiar scent. It immediately perked up and rushed out like an arrow from a bow. Seeing it like this, the snake leader, who had just crawled out not far away, was very surprised and could not help but stop. Then, the snake leader realized that its king was actually relying on a human woman. Seeing the confusion in the snake's eyes, Leng Ruoxue raised her hand and pointed at the huge, dark gray snake not far away. "Is that silly guy your subordinate?" "Mmh. Although it's a little silly, it's very obedient." Lil Fire said with a proud look. "It's good that you're obedient. If it doesn't listen to me, tell me, and I'll fix it for you." Leng Ruoxue gently stroked Zaihu's cool body and smiled. However, her words caused the large snake to tremble uncontrollably. Then, with a swoosh, the large snake in the lead immediately fled from this place and hid far away. "Woo, what a terrifying woman!" the leading snake cried out in his heart as he fled. The man and woman gave him so much pressure. Looking at the large snake slithering away like a rat, Leng Ruoxue could not help but chuckled in delight. The evildoer beside her looked at her with a pampering expression. On the other hand, Xiaohua said with slight dissatisfaction, "Woman, don't scare my little brothers. They are very timid." "Timid? Why would that old man of the Yao family take a fancy to their ancestor?" Leng Ruoxue asked in confusion. Of course, they had heard about this from Tsang. After all, it was a long time ago. Hee. That old man was young back then. Wasn't it said that it wasn't easy for the people of the divine realm to keep a beastie? Furthermore, that azure snake had a pretty good aptitude. In short, it's all the fault of youth. Lil Fire used the little old man's tone to say. Hearing its words, Leng Ruoxue couldn't help but find it funny. She couldn't help but ask, "You speak as if you've lived for a long time. Are you as old as the Yao clan's old man?" "Of course I do. I'll only be older than him, I'll never be younger." When Xiaohua heard this, it puffed out its small chest and said, "Oh. Little Hua, who is even older than the Yao family's old man, what do you plan to do next? How are you going to deal with the Yao family?" Leng Ruoxue chuckled as she asked. Rob them. I'm going to take all their money. Fiery said, brimming with confidence. To raise your little brother? Leng Ruoxue teased. Hee hee. It's good that you know. Woman, I'll leave my underlings in your care in the future. Lil Fire raised its head and looked at Leng Ruoxue as it pleaded. No problem, I'll take good care of them. However, I want to know where you plan to keep them. The Yao family's old man definitely won't let them off. Perhaps this time, the entire snake tribe will be implicated. At the thought of this, Leng Ruoxue suddenly felt worried. After all, she was not willing to implicate the innocent. Woman, don't worry. Sangdu has been arranged, the Yao family's kid won't dare to find trouble with the snake tribe. After hearing Leng Ruoxue's words, Fiery hurriedly replied. Hearing what Xiaohua said, Leng Ruoxue nodded her head. She was very confident in Sung's work. Following that, Leng Ruoxue secretly took a look at the situation of the Yao family's first elder and the rest before returning to the inn with the demon. In the afternoon, her godfather and the others were going to find trouble with the Yao family head, so she had to follow. As for Leng Ruoxue and the demon, they had sneaked out to take a look while their godfather and the others were eating. When they returned to the inn, Master Ning and the others had already eaten so much that they couldn't walk and were all lying on the bed. Chapter 2249, Furious, 3. Seeing them like this, Leng Ruoxue was especially speechless. She couldn't help but cover her face. Did they have to act like refugees? She had prepared a lot of food, but now, the table was so clean that it was as if the food had never been there. In the room, Leng Ruoxue glanced at her godfather, who had eaten his fill and was lying comfortably on the bed, groaning. She pretended to be unhappy and gritted her teeth. Godfather, why did you guys eat all the food? Aren't you afraid of holding on? Little girl. It's shameful to waste food, so we can only eat it all. Besides, we still have to go to the Yao family in the afternoon. Of course, I have to eat my fill. The master of the Ning family said matter-of-factly, but he was a little dissatisfied in his heart, because there were too many people coming to freeload. At first, there was only Old Man Cheng, then Old Man Yin came, and then more and more people came. Are you sure you can still go to the Yao family? Leng Ruoxue raised her brows and asked. No matter how she looked at it, she felt that her godfather was already too full to move. I can go. He definitely could. However, I need to rest first. Master Ning even burped as he spoke, causing Leng Ruoxue to shake her head. Leng Ruoxue's heart ached for her godfather, so she still took out a digestive pill and handed it over. Master Ning didn't suspect anything and put it in his mouth. After he ate it, he immediately felt that his stomach wasn't as bloated as before. His entire body was immediately filled with energy and he was in high spirits. Little girl, what kind of pill is this? Why do I feel like my stomach is much more comfortable? Seeing this, Master Ning asked curiously. This girl had too many strange things in her hands, many of which he could not understand. So, in front of Leng Ruoxue, he was like a curious baby. It's a digestion pill. However, I won't give it to you. Otherwise, you won't have any restraint when you eat. Leng Ruoxue understood her godfather's thoughts and immediately cut off his fantasy from the source. When he heard this, Master Ning's face fell and he looked at Leng Ruoxue pitifully. However, Leng Ruoxue was not moved at all. Instead, she reminded him, Godfather, you should go to the Yao family. Otherwise, the sky will be dark. Shuai, it's only afternoon. Why is the sky getting dark already? The master of the Ning family said in a low voice. In front of Shuai, this girl, he felt very weak. Wu, Shuai was bullying him. However, when he noticed Leng Ruoxue's unfriendly gaze, he immediately became as obedient as a kitten and quickly added, I'll go immediately. With that, Master Ning got up from the bed and walked out of the door, thinking, Shuai is so fierce, one glare and he's scared. In the long run, he was afraid that his godfather's status would become lower and lower. Sob. This fact made him extremely worried. However, when he went to the other people's rooms and saw that the Cheng family's head and the others were still lying on the bed, unable to move, his mood suddenly became better. After venting his anger at those people and belittling them again and again, the Cheng family's master and the others endured the feeling of their bellies swelling and followed the Ning family's master, who was in a good mood, to the Yao family. Ai. He had no choice but to go. He would be despised to death by Old Man Ning. Although they were all very curious as to why Old Man Ning was fine even though everyone had eaten so much, they knew that even if they asked, Old Man Ning would not tell them. As a result, this thought was like a kitten scratching at them, accompanying them all the way to the Yao family. After entering the Yao residence, they were invited into the living room. Unexpectedly, the head of the Yao family was actually waiting for them in the living room. However, the Yao residence, which had not finished cleaning up the garbage, looked a little desolate. Thanks seeing them, the Yao family head's anger still hadn't subsided, and he said with a strange expression, "Are you satisfied with the current state of our Yao family?" Old Man Yao. Look at what you're saying. Your Yao family is like this, and we didn't do it, so what does it have to do with us? What do we have to be satisfied with? The head of the Cheng family first expressed his dissatisfaction, but he couldn't deny that he was very pleased. That's right. Old Man Yao, isn't it a little unreasonable for you to blame this on us? You must know that this matter was caused by you. By the way, the snake said that this was caused by you wearing your open crotch pants. Ai. As expected, it was never too late for a gentleman to take revenge. It's been so long, but those snakes are still thinking about it. It can be seen how much damage you've caused them. The matter of adding insult to injury naturally couldn't be done without the Yin family's master. Moreover, the Yao family's old thing had expressed dissatisfaction with them and blamed them for standing by and not doing anything. What a joke. He didn't blame this old man for implicating the Yin family. What right did this old thing have to blame them? The Yao family head's words incited the anger of the crowd. However, the other family heads' reactions weren't as sharp as the Cheng and Yin family heads. Furthermore, they couldn't hold on any longer and didn't have the energy to argue with the Yao family head. However, spiritual support was still necessary. Especially after they had just experienced a delicious meal together in the afternoon, their hearts were in unison like never before. Therefore, in the blink of an eye, several daggers flew out from the Yao family head's eyes. In fact, after the head of the Yao family said those words, he also felt a moment of regret. However, as soon as he thought about what the Yao family had experienced, and how these people had stood by and watched, his regret disappeared without a trace. He even thought that if they had extended their hands at that time, would those damn snakes dare to be so rampant in the Yao family? Thinking up to this point, the head of the Yao family angrily said, "Even if I've caused them harm, you can't just stand by and watch, can you? You should know that we are all from the 8 great divine regions, so we should be the first to ask for help." However, all of you actually became bystanders and watched as those despicable snakes came to my Yao family to wreak havoc. You are helping the evildoer, do you know that? I don't know. I just feel that we shouldn't get involved in the grudges between you and the Blue Snake clan. After all, we don't have any conflicts with them. More importantly, why didn't I know that our 8 great divine regions needed help? I don't think we're that close. The moment Master Yao finished speaking, Master Ning asked curiously. Master Ning's words made Master Yao's face turn red with anger. He couldn't say anything for a long time. After a long time, he took a few deep breaths and said helplessly, "The divine realm is currently in troubled times. Master Ning, do you still want everyone to do things their own way? Only by joining forces can our 8 great divine domains' position in the divine realm be unshakable. Do you all understand?" When he said this, he was almost shouting, and his expression was one of disappointment. Unfortunately, the other family masters didn't seem to have much reaction to his words. Except for the master of the Ning family, who looked up at the sky, the others only cared about holding their stomachs and didn't care about anything else. This fact made the head of the Yao family even angrier. The small red flames in his eyes shot higher and higher, almost materializing and shooting towards the people present. The few family heads present were still busy with their own things. Enough. Can't you all focus on me? The head of the Yao family couldn't take it anymore and directly shouted. At this time, the other family heads blinked their eyes in shock and their mouths were slightly open. They looked at him with the most innocent expression on their faces. We're very focused. The head of the Qing clan said timidly, still concentrating on stroking his belly. If he ate too much, he would be bloated. Focus, my ass. Seeing the Qing family head's appearance and hearing his words, the Yao family head roared in anger. With this roar, the Qing family head simply put on a frightened expression and looked at him with watery eyes. Woo, old man Ning, he's so fierce. I'm so scared. Then, Master Qing exaggeratedly buried his head in Master Ning's shoulder and choked. Seeing him like this, Leng Ruoxue and Master Ning's faces were filled with black lines. However, Master Ning still gave him face and did not push him away. Instead, he glared at Master Yao and said angrily, Old man Yao, what are you doing? Even if you're in a bad mood, you can't vent your anger on us, right? I know you're angry that we just stood by and did nothing, but why don't you think about it? If you were in our shoes, would you care about this? If the 8 of us join forces to bully a few beasts and the 4 legendary beasts find out, do you think they will let go of this good opportunity? Or do you want the divine realm to fall into chaos and the humans and magical beasts to go to war? The master of the Ning family deliberately paused and continued. His great reasoning made the master of the Qing family and the others admire him. Even Leng Ruoxue felt that her godfather was too charming at this moment. His aura was also extremely powerful. Feeling the adoring gazes of the people present, especially his own goddaughter, the master of the Ning family couldn't help but feel smug. How could I think that way? I didn't ask you to kill those snakes. I just feel that with you here, if you make your stand clear, those hateful snakes won't dare to wreak havoc in our Yao family. The head of the Yao clan said with an aggrieved expression. Chapter 2250. Can't you guys lend a hand? 1. In fact, he knew that Master Ning's words made sense. After all, it was not necessary for the 8 divine regions to attack together to deal with a few little snakes. Otherwise, the divine lord's estate would be alarmed. However, when he saw that the people in front of him were indifferent and were watching the show calmly, he couldn't help but vent his anger. Fuck. The Yao family had been almost reduced to ruins, but these people in front of him didn't even offer him a word of comfort. This fact made him feel extremely unbalanced. Otherwise, he wouldn't have wanted to find trouble with these people. But now, it seemed that not only was the effect minimal, but he also had to carefully smile. This really made him so depressed that he was about to vomit blood. However, he really couldn't defend all 7 of them at once, so he could only sulk in his heart. Seeing Master Yao's aggrieved look, Master Ning almost laughed in his heart. He naturally knew that his words had an effect. People like them had to consider too many aspects when doing things. Many times, they couldn't do as they pleased, so sometimes, he was very envious of Shuai. At least, whatever Shuai wanted to do, she didn't have to think about this and that. When it came to them, many things had to be done in private. To put it bluntly, they had too many things that could not be seen in the light. Thinking of this, the master of the Ning family said seriously, Yao family head, I understand how you feel, and I also know that your Yao family has indeed suffered heavy losses this time. However, sympathy is sympathy, but there are some things that we still have to make clear. Was he looking for trouble? Hearing Master Ning's words, the Qing family's master and the others immediately straightened their backs and became energetic. The Yao family's master almost vomited blood when he saw them like this. Fuck. These people were definitely doing this on purpose. He had said so much just now, and even complaining couldn't make them so focused, but old man Ning's one sentence made them focus. Wasn't this clearly bullying? Although this was the truth, the head of the Yao family still told himself to endure it. He wanted to hear what the old man from the Ning family would say next. After deliberately pausing to scan the reactions of the people present, the master of the Ning family said with a faint smile, "Now that the Yao family's poisoning incident has been cleared up, it's time to discuss our compensation. In addition, we've already negotiated with those snakes, that we won't interfere in the matter between you two and that they would give us the snake venom to refine into an antidote, but the sudden appearance of the Yao family's patriarch scared them away, so I think that the snake venom we need should be obtained by the Yao family's patriarch on our behalf. What do you think?" "We have no objections." After Master Ning finished speaking, the other three masters quickly expressed their opinions, and Master Yao, who didn't have time to express his opinion, was so angry that he wanted to vomit blood again. "You bastards! When those snakes attacked the Yao family, it was fine if they didn't help. After all, you had negotiated with them, and people all have selfish motives, so he could barely understand. However, when your deal was not completed, you actually blamed it on him and even wanted him to take responsibility for it. This was a little too much. Or did he look like he was easy to bully? He would do whatever other people asked him to do." The head of the Yao family thought to himself indignantly. He deeply felt that the fact that he was still able to hold back and not curse at these people or fight them showed that his demeanor was extraordinarily good. In a short moment, the Yao family head's heart was in turmoil, and a huge wave was formed. Anger and hatred intertwined, causing his face to be uncertain. When Len Ruoshua saw this, she knew that this old man was extremely angry. However, she found it quite interesting. Thanks, these 8 families had gathered to discuss her matter, but she had not expected that this small matter would push the head of the Yao family to the opposite side of the other 7 families. She also didn't know if the Yao family's old man's previous intentions could be realized. She was really looking forward to it. He also wanted to see how the old man of the Yao family would achieve his goal. At this time, Master Ning saw that although Master Yao was very angry, he could still control himself and didn't jump up. He knew that this hadn't reached his bottom line. Instantly, he decided to work harder. "Since Master Yao has no objections, then it's settled," the master of the Ning family said with a smile. When did I say I had no objections?" The head of the Yao family, who had been secretly cursing for a long time, suddenly woke up when he heard this and quickly said, "You haven't said anything for a long time. Didn't you agree?" The master of the Ning family blinked innocently and asked with a pure face. "Who said that?" The head of the Yao clan said angrily. "What's wrong? Are you trying to deny it?" I knew you were always like this. But fortunately, we have so many witnesses this time. So, you can't deny it," the master of the Ning family said with a smile. The expression on his face was as annoying as it could get, but he felt good about himself. When the head of the Yao family heard this, his face clearly darkened. He stood up from his seat with a whoosh and shouted, "What do you mean by not acknowledging it? I didn't agree to it at all, okay? If you didn't agree, why didn't you say so earlier? You didn't even let out a fart. Who knows if you didn't agree? Old man Yao. It's not like we just got to know you today. Your performance just now was clearly a silent agreement. If there was something you didn't agree with, you would have strongly opposed it long ago. Why would you be so honest? So, don't quibble, we have so many eyes watching." Seeing this, the patriarch of the Chen clan sighed softly and said, "I was obviously making Master Ning so angry that he couldn't say anything. How was that a tacit agreement?" The head of the Yao family roared in anger. If he had only been complaining in his heart just now, then the other party had taken his silence as consent without his consent. He couldn't bear it no matter what. Fuck. Where would the Yao family put their face if they continued to endure? However, the head of the Yao family obviously didn't want to offend the other 7 families, so he simply formed an alliance. He looked at the head of the Qi family with anger and said, "Qi family head, you be the judge. Did I agree tacitly? They're clearly the ones who want to force this matter on me. How could I possibly agree to such a thing?" Looking at Master Yao, who was looking at him expectantly, Master Qi had a headache. He really didn't want to get involved in this matter. Moreover, personally speaking, he was on Master Ning's side, but old man Yao wasn't easy to mess with. If he offended that old man too much, who knew when he would be stabbed in the back by that old thing? As he thought about this, the head of the Qi family laughed without saying anything and pretended to be deaf. Seeing him like this, the anger in the Yao family head's heart rose again. However, when he turned his gaze to the other two people, the two of them lowered their heads in unison. Just as he was about to speak, the heads of the Yu and Fan families even started snoring. This scene almost made him explode with anger. Chapter 2251, Can't you guys lend a hand? 2. However, Leng Ruox's feelings were the exact opposite of his. She was laughing very happily in her heart. He couldn't help but sigh in his heart. What a bunch of old foxes. In order not to offend people, he even did such a thing. Sigh. If she had not seen it with her own eyes, Leng Ruoxue would never have believed that these people were the family heads of the 8 great divine regions. It was a little embarrassing. Not being able to find an ally anywhere, the head of the Yao family deeply felt that he had failed as a person. Then, he wanted to play the emotional card, only to see his eyes shimmering, and then, slightly choked with emotion, he said to the head of the Ning family, Master Ning, I've always respected you, and we've known each other for so many years. Don't you know what kind of person I am? However, I really can't agree to those things you've said, especially the matter of asking me to find those snakes and get their venom for you. Besides, didn't you guys already make a deal? Since they're so untrustworthy, I think you should go and settle the score with them. Don't let them go. Hearing this, the head of the Chen clan couldn't help but say, Old man Yao, it's not that those snakes didn't keep their word. They were scared away by you. So, you have the responsibility to retrieve the snake venom for us. We have no dissatisfaction with those snakes, so don't kill them with a borrowed knife. We are not that easy to order around. Patriarch Cheng, that's not what I meant. I'm really thinking for you. You also know that I have a grudge against those snakes. How could they give me the snake venom? The head of the Yao family felt that the head of the Cheng family was somewhat dissatisfied and hurriedly tried to remedy the situation. However, the head of the Cheng family only rolled his eyes at him and ignored him. At this time, the master of the Ning family confirmed again, Yao family head, are you going to refuse our compensation, or are you going to refuse to give us the snake venom, or are you going to refuse both of them? Ah. I can give you appropriate compensation, but I will never agree to the snake's poison. When I see those snakes, I will definitely not be able to resist the urge to attack. If I accidentally kill the snake that poisoned me, I will not be able to get the snake's poison. The head of the Yao clan asked worriedly. Yao family head, don't forget that there are also people in your Yao family who have been poisoned. Furthermore, the poison in the Yao family is much more serious than the poison in our 4 families. You said that you were afraid that you would accidentally kill the poisonous snake. Don't tell me that you don't even care about the lives of your own clansmen. The master of the Ning family asked with a smile. That's right. You don't care about the Yao family anymore. Old man Yao, I think you'd better obediently accept this mission. Even if it's not for us, it's for the Yao family. The head of the Chen clan laughed evilly. The two of them echoed each other, and the head of the Yao family was speechless. Because he only cared about getting angry, he really forgot about the Yao family being poisoned. But then he thought about it and felt that what they said was very reasonable. He really had to find those snakes. In that case, he had better agree. At the very least, he would be able to regain some of the impression he left in these people's hearts. After thinking this way, the head of the Yao family helplessly nodded his head, which could be considered as an agreement. Seeing that he had achieved his goal, the Chen clan's patriarch was in a great mood. However, he couldn't help but sigh in his heart. He was really an idiot. Since the result was the same, it would have been better if he had agreed earlier. They could have looked at him higher. But now, the position of the Yao family head in their hearts was simply as low as dust. Inwardly disdaining the head of the Yao family, the head of the Qing family continued, since old man Yao has accepted the matter of the snake poison, shouldn't we discuss the issue of compensation now? Although old man Yao had said that it was compensation, the head of the Qing family had long decided to treat it as compensation. He couldn't let that old thing take advantage of the loopholes in the word game, or they would suffer a great loss. Although compensation and compensation were only one word apart, their meanings were completely different. The amount of compensation would definitely be huge and would satisfy them. However, the compensation, to put it nicely, would give them some money, but to put it bluntly, it was just to send off beggars. Therefore, the master of the Qing family, who had thought it through, had long made up his mind to not let this old thing take advantage of him. Thanks, it should be. The master of the Ning family nodded and casually glanced at the master of the Yao family. Just this glance made the heart of the master of the Yao family beat wildly. He didn't know why, but he had a very bad feeling. The facts proved that his feeling was correct. Because as soon as the Ning family's master finished speaking, the Yao family's master saw the four of them each take out a piece of paper from their storage rings and hand it to him. Our compensation has already been prepared. Yao family head, please take a look. The master of the Ning family said with a smile. The feeling of robbing old man Yao was really good. He just didn't know how many good things this old man had in his hands and whether it was enough for them to split. The head of the Yao family casually glanced at what was written on the paper and his eyes immediately widened. This was the compensation they wanted? Did the four families come to an agreement? Although the things they wanted were different, they were definitely things from his treasure vault. Even if they didn't want everything, they would at least take up half of it. Looking at the things on the paper, he really wondered if they had been to his treasure vault. However, he was very confident in the safety of his treasure vault, so he knew that it was impossible. Then how do you explain the things on the paper? For a moment, the head of the Yao family was at a loss. He racked his brains, but he couldn't figure out what was going on. He didn't even know if he should be glad that they didn't take away all of his treasures. However, the things on the paper were enough to make his heart ache. Originally, he just wanted to give them some compensation. He didn't expect that these people would actually ask for such an exorbitant price. This made the anger in his heart that had just subsided a little surge again. Is this what you want me to compensate you for? After taking a few deep breaths, the head of the Yao family couldn't help but ask. Yup. Aren't we very kind? I didn't ask for too much. The head of the Qing family nodded his head vigorously, extremely obedient. This is considered little. The head of the Yao family gritted his teeth. Of course it's less, compared to what you gave to Shuer, what we have is nothing. I say, old man Yao, could it be that you're reluctant to part with him? These things are just a drop in the ocean for you. Don't tell me you can't take them out. The head of the Qing clan seemed to have understood something. He blinked his eyes and asked in disbelief. Of course I can, the head of the Yao family gritted his teeth, but before he could finish, he heard the head of the Qing family pat his chest and say, it's all right. It was still all right. I'm afraid you can't take it out. At that time, I won't be able to answer to my clansmen. Don't you guys think that you're asking for a bit too much? The head of the Yao clan said viciously, as if he would bite if the Qing clan head and the others didn't dare to say much. However, the head of the Qing family was not afraid of him. He heard the Qing family head say with a very innocent and sincere face, we don't want much at all. Chapter 2252, Can't you guys lend a hand? 3. These words made Master Yao's face darken even more. Then, he said ruthlessly, I can only agree to half of the compensation you ask for. To be honest, even half of it would hurt him, but he knew that if he gave too little, these people would definitely not agree. So, he gritted his teeth and thought of it as spending money to avoid disaster. When the head of the Qing family and the others heard this, they were overjoyed, but they didn't show it on their faces. In fact, they had written so many things because of Old Man Ning's idea. In Old Man Ning's words, Old Man Yao would definitely haggle the price. If they asked for too little, they might get nothing. When they heard this, they felt that it was reasonable. Therefore, they had such a compensation that made the head of the Yao family grit his teeth and feel a deep pain in his heart. And the facts proved that old man Ning was right. It was only half of the compensation. It had already exceeded their expectations. It could be said that they were quite satisfied. However, they still pretended to be dissatisfied. With the Qing family head as their representative, they said very reluctantly, "Old man Yao, so many of our people were poisoned by your Yao family, yet you're only paying us half of what we're asking for. Isn't that a little too much?" "That's a lot." The head of the Yao clan said angrily. "We want 2/3. The head of the Qing family pretended to haggle. "I'll only give half. Do you want it or not?" The head of the Yao family said with a look of indifference. Hearing him say this, the four of them looked at each other. In the end, they had no choice but to nod in agreement. When the head of the Yao family saw this, he felt extremely proud. Humph. He was the final victor. If these people wanted to take advantage of him, there was no way. However, if he knew that the other party was already very satisfied with just half of the compensation, he would probably vomit blood in anger. Seeing that the issue of compensation had been settled, the head of the Yao clan wanted to start discussing Leng Ruox's matter with them. However, the head of the Chen clan and the others demanded that he pay the compensation first. The Yao family head wouldn't allow them to go back on their word after viciously taking the items they wanted to compensate them with. Originally, discussing Leng Ruox's matter was the reason why he had invited these people here. However, because of the poisoning incident, he had not had the chance to discuss it. Now that the culprit had been found and the compensation to the four families had been paid, he had to take the opportunity to talk about Leng Ruoxue. Otherwise, wouldn't the price that the Yao family had paid be in vain? His heart was bleeding when he thought of the precious items that had left him. However, when the patriarch of the Chen clan heard his words, he couldn't help but say, "Old man Yao, you're not going to settle the score with those snakes and take back the snake venom we want, but you're still in the mood to discuss the matter of that little girl Shuer. Your heart is really big. There are so many infected people in the Yao family who are still waiting for you to save them. As the head of the family, you can't let them down. Aren't you all the same, doing nothing all day? What right do you have to criticize me?" The head of the Yao family roared, clearly not in a good mood. On the other hand, the head of the Qing family and the others, who had received quite a bit of compensation, were in a good mood and naturally didn't mind his tone. Then, he heard the head of the Qing family say with a smile, "How can we be the same as you? Although our family members are also poisoned, but it's much less severe than your Yao family's poison. Your Yao family's poison is contagious, and who knows if there will be more Yao family members infected. So, no matter what, you should be more anxious than us. That's right, I suggest that you first cure the poison of the poisoned person, then we can discuss other things. Otherwise, if the Yao family members find out, they will be disappointed in you as the head of the family. I don't think we should disturb you any further. Well, take our leave first." The master of the Yin family echoed. After he finished speaking, he stood up and was about to leave. Seeing this, the others also planned to leave. When the head of the Yao family saw this, he immediately became anxious. He hurriedly blocked their path and shouted, "None of you are allowed to leave before we finish discussing Leng Ruox's matter." Looking at the Yao family head's determined look, the Ning family head and the others were helpless. Just as they were hesitating about how to deal with it, they saw the 9th elder of the Yao family run into the living room, sweating. "Patriarch, something has happened to the 1st elder and the others." Elder Yao Jiu couldn't care less about the presence of others as he spoke anxiously. "What did they do?" The head of the Yao clan couldn't help but frown at these words. "They've been captured by the Azure Snake clan," Elder Yao Jiu reported. He had also just received the news. Because he had been unable to contact the Great Elder and the others, he had personally gone to look for them. However, he had learned that they had returned to the main city. After investigating from many sides, he finally found clues that the Great Elder and the others had been captured. In fact, the Great Elder had been secretly competing with him. Therefore, When he found out that the great elder had been captured, he was still gloating. However, he had to inform the master of the family. After all, the great elder was not the only one who had been captured. Damn it! It's the Blue Snake clan again. The Yao family head's face was as black as ink. It could also be said that his expression today had never been normal. Thanks, old man Yao, you'd better quickly go and save your Yao family's grand elder and the others. Now that they've fallen into the Azure Snake's hands, I can't imagine how much torture they'll have to endure. Seeing this, the head of the Chen clan asked with a face full of concern. In reality, he wanted to go and watch the show and find those blue snakes to get their snake venom. However, the premise was that Elder Yao Jiu had to know the location of the Blue Snake clan. Otherwise, wouldn't all his efforts be in vain? Where are those dead snakes? Even though he was angry that they could not talk about Leng Ruoxue again, he could not deny that old man Cheng's words were not without reason. No matter how useless First Elder and the others were, they were still his descendants and members of the Yao family. Naturally, they couldn't fall into the hands of a snake. If that was the case, where would the Yao family put their face? Someone saw a group of snakes on a cliff near the Yao family's divine realm. I wonder if they're the ones who kidnapped the First Elder and the others. Elder Yao Jiu said with uncertainty. That's easy, we'll know when we go and take a look. The head of the Chen clan immediately suggested upon hearing this. He was so eager to set off immediately. Let's go and take a look. After a moment of silence, the head of the Yao family spoke. He was the first to leave. Seeing this, the other family heads also teleported away. Very quickly, the Yao family head and the others arrived at the cliff. Sure enough, they saw the Yao family's First Elder and the others hanging on the cliff like goods. However, at this time, their image was not very good, because the Yao family's elders were hanging upside down and only wore small underpants. The rest of their bodies were bare. Moreover, their skin was pale without a trace of blood. In the rustling autumn wind, they were shivering from the cold. Seeing this, the head of the Cheng family couldn't help but sigh. Aya, that's so pitiful. How come they've been stripped naked? His words, unsurprisingly, received a roll of eyes from the head of the Yao family. Retracting his gaze, the Yao clan head instructed Elder Yao Jiu, hurry up and put them down. Yes. Yes, Elder Yao Jiu replied. Then, he looked around vigilantly. After confirming that there were no enemies, he walked to the edge of the cliff with confidence. Just as he was about to untie the elder closest to him, he suddenly realized that the rope tied to the elder had moved and was bearing its sharp venomous fangs at him. Instantly, Elder Yao Jiu was so frightened that he took a huge step back. Fuck! This wasn't a rope, it was a snake. However, these snakes were thin and long, and they did not move. They looked no different from ropes. The head of the Yao family and the others also realized that the ropes that were holding the Yao family elders were not real ropes, but live snakes. For a moment, they all forgot to react. Ugh! This idea is really too original, the head of the Qing clan and the others couldn't help but think to themselves. Only the head of the Yao clan was observing those ropes, and then, to his surprise, he began to attack. Old man Yao. How can you attack? Don't you care about the lives of these Yao family elders? The head of the Chen clan couldn't help but remind her. As he spoke, he once again received a dagger glare from the head of the Yao family. As he finished speaking, he personally witnessed an elder of the Yao family being thrown off the rope and falling off the cliff. Seeing this, he quickly covered his mouth and thought, am I a jinx? How could he be so accurate? As for the rope that was attacked by the head of the Yao family, it nimbly climbed up a huge tree and escaped. This scene made the family head sympathize with the elder who had fallen off the cliff. In fact, it was all the fault of the family head that the elder had lost his footing. They didn't know if that fellow would die with his eyes wide open. But fortunately, that elder was unconscious when he fell and didn't know anything. Otherwise, they would have been killed by the screams. The few of them secretly complained to themselves without any sympathy. However, when they saw the gloomy face of the Yao family's head, they didn't say anything more, but they didn't intend to help. Seeing this, the head of the Yao family was furious. In the end, he couldn't help but roar, "Can't you guys lend a hand?" Ah! Hearing this, the other family heads looked at each other. Then, they saw the Cheng family head say with a troubled expression, "We're so clumsy. If we accidentally push your family's elder off the cliff, won't you blame us? If you don't blame us, we'll help you. Can't you guys be more careful?" The head of the Yao family asked, holding back his anger. In his eyes, these were clearly excuses from the other party. However, he didn't dare to get angry, afraid that these people would quit in a fit of anger. After all, with these people around, even if they didn't care about anything, they still had a deterrent effect. To put it bluntly, it was better to have them around than to have none. Chapter 2253, The Enlarged Lil, Fire, 1. Even if you're being careful, there are times when you make mistakes. We really can't guarantee that we won't make a mistake, so you'd better think carefully. If we accidentally make a mistake, don't blame us. Because you were the one who shamelessly asked for our help, everyone can be a witness. Patriarch Cheng really didn't believe in Patriarch Yao's credibility, so he had no choice but to say the ugly words first. But in reality, he didn't really want to meddle in the Yao family's business, so he spared no effort to find a way to shirk it. The other family heads present had similar thoughts as him. Everyone knew in their hearts that it was best not to get involved in the Yao family's business, otherwise, it would definitely be a waste of effort. When the head of the Yao family heard these words, although he was furious, he was not stupid. He knew that now was not the time to offend these people, so he could only suppress his anger and say, "Don't worry and just help. If something really happens to these elders, it's their own lives, they can't blame you. Don't worry. I will definitely not blame you. I won't blame you for now, but if something really happens to these elders, it's hard to say if the Yao family will come after you in the future." After the Yao family's head said those words of no blame, he couldn't help but feel disgruntled in his heart. Who asked him not to offend them now? After hearing Master Yao's promise, the other masters were still worried, so Master Ning said, "Words are not proof, I think you'd better take a blood oath." "A blood oath is good. As long as you make a blood oath, we will immediately help you save these people." Hearing this, the master of the Cheng family was the first to respond, and the other masters also nodded repeatedly. Obviously, they very much agreed with Master Ning's proposal, and they all looked at Master Ning with admiration, thinking, as expected of Master Ning. Why didn't they think of it? In this way, if something really happened, the Yao family wouldn't dare to do anything to them even if they were dissatisfied with them. Otherwise, the blood oath would kill them first. The more they thought about it, the more they felt that they had to make the head of the Yao family swear a blood oath in the name of the Yao family. Otherwise, they would rather be charged with the crime of watching with folded arms than meddle in the Yao family's affairs. In any case, it wasn't the first time that the head of the Yao family had given them such a big label. They were also slowly getting used to it. A blood oath? When the other patriarchs felt that it was necessary, the Yao family's patriarch heard it and was so angry that the flames of anger in his heart rose. Fuck! Could a blood oath be casually taken? That was a blood oath. In other words, if he made a blood oath, as long as it was his descendants who were related to him by blood, they could not find trouble with these families. Otherwise, the Yao family would be the one in trouble. Therefore, this blood oath must not be taken. If the other party only wanted him to write a written pledge or make an oath, he could reluctantly agree, but a blood oath? No way. In fact, there was another reason why the head of the Yao family was not willing to make a blood oath. If he had only written a written pledge or made an ordinary oath, he might not have been able to find trouble with the other 7 families, but that didn't mean that his own family members couldn't find trouble with them. Therefore, he could never make a blood oath. However, he also knew that if he didn't make a blood oath, these old foxes would definitely not be willing to help him. Therefore, when he thought of this, his gloomy face became even darker. Thanks Elder Yao Jiu, who was at the side, did not dare to step forward at all when he saw his family head's face that was as dark as ink. He tried his best to lower his presence so that the family head would not vent his anger on him. However, he was obviously overthinking it. The head of the Yao family couldn't care about him right now because he had a better target to vent his anger on, and that was the snakes that tied the Yao family elders down. After making up his mind, Master Yao glared at Master Ning and the others with his eyes that were spitting fire. "You want me to take a blood oath? Humph. I can't afford to use you, but I don't need your help." After he finished speaking, the head of the Yao family flew towards the cliff in a rage. Seeing this, the head of the Chen clan couldn't help but say in disappointment, "Old man Yao is really a jokester. They don't even know how to bargain with us." Sigh. "I thought he was a smart person. So I overestimated him." As soon as these words came out, the Ning family's master and the others couldn't help but have black lines on their foreheads. They thought to themselves, "Are you shooting after the horse?" They didn't think that it would be useful for the old man of the Yao family to bargain with them over this matter. After all, they didn't sincerely want to help, so they naturally wouldn't give the other party a chance to bargain. On this point, they had the opposite opinion of the Qing family's patriarch. They felt that the Yao family's patriarch was very wise. Elder Yao Jiu, who had also heard these words, was so angry that he could not catch his breath and almost passed out. Fuck. Was there such an infuriating fellow? If it wasn't for the fact that this wasn't the right place, Elder Yao Jiu couldn't guarantee that he wouldn't get angry. Although his status might not be anything in the eyes of these people, as a member of the Yao family, he was still a hot-blooded person. Naturally, he couldn't just stand by and watch them bully his family head. But now, it seemed like he could only swallow his anger. At the thought of this, he choked and coughed a few more times. When the head of the Chen clan heard this, he couldn't help but comfort her with a worried expression. "Yao Xiaojiu, are you alright? Don't be afraid. Although your Yao family's elders might lose their lives, your family's ancestor will definitely be fine. As long as he's here, your Yao family will never go extinct. As the saying goes, if the old doesn't go, the new won't come. Now that these elders are dead, Old Man Yao will definitely work harder to make more people. So, don't you worry. Rest assured, my ass." Hearing these seemingly concerned words, Elder Yao Jiu not only couldn't feel happy, but he even felt a faint anger in his heart. However, he knew that this was definitely not the time to argue with the Qing family head. Saving people was more important. The Yao family was not like these guys who were just there to watch the show, bored to death. There was plenty of time to argue with them, there were so many elders of the Yao family waiting for them to save them. With this thought in mind, Elder Yao Jiu wisely ignored the Qing family head's words and followed after the Yao family head to once again rush out of the cliff to save people. Seeing this, the master of the Qing family said again, "Ayaya." Why was the Yao family's little brat also so restless? Those snakes are not to be trifled with. As soon as he finished speaking, the few people watching the show saw Elder Yao Jiu being swept by a slender snake tail and sent flying more than 10 meters away. Elder Yao Jiu was in an extremely sorry state as he tried his best to stand firm and not fall to the ground. "I told you, these snakes are not to be trifled with." The head of the Qing family felt that he was very wise, but this time, before he could finish speaking, he immediately received 2 sharp daggers in his eyes. Seeing this, he calmly shrugged his shoulders and said, "I'm just telling the truth." Chapter 2254, Lil, Fires Enlarged, 2. However, the head of the Yao family and Elder Yao Jiu, who were glaring daggers at him, didn't have much time to pay attention to him, because more and more snakes were climbing up from the bottom of the cliff and surrounding the two of them. These snakes seemed to be under someone's command. Every time the head of the Yao family and Elder Yao Jiu were about to attack them, they would deliberately climb onto the bodies of the Yao family's elders. With this, the two of them didn't dare to attack easily with Gu Fei around. Seeing this, the head of the Qing family said with a smile, "These snakes are so smart." Yes. These snakes were very smart. They might not be as strong as the Yao family head and elder Yao Jiu, but they had hostages in their hands, so they were absolutely fearless. As for the Yao family's patriarch and elder Yao Jiu, they were much more depressed than the snakes. At this moment, Master Yin came to Master Cheng's side and nudged him. He whispered, "Old man Cheng, aren't you afraid that old man Yao will come after you for this? That guy is very insidious. I think you should stop while you're ahead. You have to know that he's very angry right now." Tisk. If I don't anger him, will he not find trouble with our Cheng family? Old man Yin, when did you become so simple-minded? I'll tell you. Old man Yao's ambition was huge. He might not be satisfied with just trampling on our 7 families. Do you understand what I mean? So, as long as we have the chance, we must do everything we can to attack him. We can't give him the time or the chance to deal with us. The head of the Cheng clan said with a serious expression. Does he really have such great ambitions? Aren't you afraid of angering the crowd? When the Yin family head heard this, he couldn't help but ask with wide eyes. He had always thought that the Yao family head was just a bit greedy and petty, but he had never thought that he was really as the Cheng family head had said and had great ambitions. However, he believed that although the Cheng family head seemed unreliable, he would never make irresponsible remarks. Public anger. Do you think he would offend all of us at once? Have you forgotten the purpose of his invitation? This time, he's here for old man Ning, but next time, it might be us. So, we must not let him succeed, understand? Although he had the best relationship with the old man of the Ning family among the 8 great divine domains, this was by no means an important factor for him to protect the old man. He also believed that other than the old man, no one knew better than him the ambitions of the old man of the Yao family. When Master Yin heard this, he also nodded solemnly. He looked at Master Ning's calm face and admired him in his heart. Look at the old man from the Ning family, he was so calm at all times and would never panic. He felt that he still had a lot to learn from him. Just as the master of the Yin family was feeling emotional and decided to follow the footsteps of the old man from the Ning family, he suddenly heard a roar. I won't let you off. When Master Yin heard this, he couldn't help but turn his head in curiosity. Then, he widened his eyes in disbelief. What did he see? Had the old man of the Yao family gone crazy? Why did they suddenly attack so crazily? They didn't even ask if they were friends or enemies, and even attacked their own elders. Seeing this frightening scene, the few family heads present could not help but break out in cold sweat. Oh my God! This was too unbelievable. This was because they saw with their own eyes that after the head of the Yao family attacked the snakes for a long time and couldn't even touch a single scale, he went crazy and attacked the Yao family elders and the snakes together. Furthermore, several elders had already been hit off the cliff with the snakes. They didn't know what to say about this. They could only stare speechlessly with their eyes wide open and their mouths half open, unable to regain their senses for a long time. We're finished. It's finished. Old man Yao has gone crazy. The Qin clan's patriarch muttered to himself with a worried expression. His voice wasn't soft, so elder Yao Jiu, who was worriedly looking at the Qing family's patriarch not too far away, naturally heard him clearly. After giving the Qing family's patriarch a deep look, elder Yao Jiu hurriedly ran to his side and worriedly pulled on the other party's arm, which was about to attack, and loudly said, Master, don't. Get out of the way. I'm going to kill these damn snakes today. The head of the Yao family, who was burning with anger, didn't listen to anyone's advice at all. At this time, his calmness and rationality had been replaced by anger. Moreover, he had never been toyed with like this in his long life. Yes. He had a feeling that he had been played by someone, and the people who played him were some lowly snakes in the divine realm. This fact made him extremely angry. One had to know that in the immortal realm, there were not many people who he acknowledged as having a higher status than him. It was even more impossible for these snakes to be among those people. Moreover, he was on equal footing with the 4 kings of the Beast clan and the kings of the Divine Beast clan. Naturally, he would not put these snakes that were as small as dust in his eyes. But now, these damn snakes were toying with him. As soon as they realized that he had the intention to attack, they all hid behind the Yao family elders and exposed the Yao family elders' bodies to be used as a shield for them, causing him to be tied up. This knowledge made the anger in his heart multiply. Therefore, in his impulse, he did not care about these descendants. However, it didn't matter if he didn't care about the life and death of these descendants. Elder Yao Jiu knew that he had to persuade him. Otherwise, when the family head calmed down, he might hold a grudge against him. To him, it would definitely not be worth it. After quickly weighing the pros and cons, Elder Yao Jiu said with a heavy heart, "Master, they are the descendants you have placed your hopes on. If they fall, the losses to our Yao family will be incalculable. So, family head, please calm down, don't be fooled by these snakes." When Elder Yao Jiu said these words, it could be said that he loved and hated these snakes at the same time. He loved them because they had the opportunity to get rid of all their opponents, but he hated them because they had implicated the innocent because his people were also among the people who had been kidnapped by these snakes. That was why he couldn't bear to. However, these snakes were not raised by him, so they naturally could not act according to his wishes. Especially his nemesis, the Yao family's first elder. Other than being unconscious, he was still alive and well. Looking at the Yao family's first elder, who had been stripped to the point that he was only left with a pair of underpants, he really hoped that the family head would also throw him off the cliff. Unfortunately, his wish was beautiful, but reality was cruel. In his madness, the head of the Yao family had ruthlessly attacked many elders, but he had never attacked the Grand Elder. Thus, his wish would not be fulfilled in a short period of time. It's their honor to die for their family. Elder Yao Jiu's persuasion caused the head of the Yao family to waver for a moment, but he quickly steeled his resolve. He didn't want these snakes to be too smug. He wanted to let these hateful fellows know that he had no weaknesses. Don't even think about using these elders to threaten me. He had no lack of descendants. Chapter 2255, Lil, Fires Enlarged, 3. With this thought in mind, the head of the Yao family directly threw Elder Yao Jiu to the side and started his furious attack again. But this time, the snakes had changed their strategy. Originally, it was his attack that followed the snakes. Wherever the snakes went, his attack would follow. However, this time, his attack arrived first, and then a large number of snakes quickly appeared there, shaking their heads to lure him, but he just couldn't hit them. The targets he had targeted were the Yao family's elders, many of whom were Elder Yao Jiu's trusted aides. This fact made Elder Yao Jiu's heart ache. In for a penny, in for a pound. Elder Yao Jiu mustered up his courage and once again hugged his family head's body because he knew that this couldn't continue. Otherwise, all the Yao family elders would be annihilated. "Master! Please stop. Otherwise, the elders will all die." Elder Yao Jiu shouted with a pained expression. His heart was also bleeding because many of the elders who had fallen off the cliff were his trusted aides. He didn't know if the elders were still alive. "Yup. Old man Yao, if you continue to fight like this, the Yao family's elders will really be wiped out by you." Sigh. How pitiful. If you had known this would happen, you would have taken a blood oath. With our help, even if we failed, your Yao family wouldn't have lost so many elders. But now, you should prepare for their funeral. As for the public, I suggest you say that they are poisoned. At least it's better than letting people know that they were killed by you. Otherwise, it will definitely cause panic in the divine realm. Those who don't know the truth will think that a homicidal maniac has appeared in the divine realm. The head of the Chen clan interjected, wishing for the world to be in chaos. His words instantly angered the Yao family's patriarch and Elder Yao Jiu to the point that their faces turned ashen and gradually turned black. In the end, the Yao family's patriarch finally couldn't bear it anymore and roared, "If you don't speak, no one will think you're mute." If he could, he really wanted to sew up the mouth of this damn old man from the Qing family. It was really too infuriating, wasn't it? At this time, He was extremely frustrated. These snakes were originally meant to be his punching bags, but who knew that not only did they not make him vent his anger, but they made him even angrier. He didn't understand why it was like this. What was the problem? The Yao clan head's mind was in a mess, while the Chen clan head, who heard his reaction, said with an aggrieved expression, "I'm just concerned about you. If you don't appreciate it, then forget it. But I'm a vengeful person. So, you'd better remember. Don't ask me for help in the future. I don't care about you. Don't worry. I will never ask you for help." The head of the Yao family gritted his teeth. Then, his gaze involuntarily turned to the calm and composed head of the Ning family, and he said, "Master Ning, I know you're the most loyal." However, before he could finish, he was interrupted by the calm master of the Ning family, "As long as you make a blood oath, everything will be fine." Just this one sentence made the Yao family head swallow the rest of his words back into his stomach. Fuck. If he was willing to make a blood oath, would he still need to play the emotional card with them? However, these people obviously wouldn't be moved by his words. He also knew that he couldn't continue to be impulsive. If these elders all died, the impact on the Yao family's strength would be significant. Unfortunately, now that he had thought it through, those fellows who were watching the show were not easy to manipulate. The head of the Qing family had been completely offended by him, so he could not be counted on. And the others wanted him to make a blood oath. This was exactly what he was most unwilling to do. The head of the Yao family, who had been silent for a long time, kept thinking in his heart. Then, he began to quietly send voice transmissions to a few people other than the heads of the Ning and Qing families, trying to move them in private. When they heard this, they were all surprised. Did this mean that they wanted to split up? The few people who received the message didn't change their expressions, but no matter what the head of the Yao family said, they insisted that he had to take a blood oath. This fact made the head of the Yao family so angry that he almost vomited blood. Fuck. Why did he never know that the 7 families were so united? How did this happen? When did this happen? The more the head of the Yao family thought about it, the more frightened he became. This feeling of being isolated made him quite uncomfortable. One had to know that he wanted to isolate others. Why was he the one being isolated now? This terrifying result made him feel a trace of panic that he had never felt before. However, he was worthy of being in a high position for many years, and he did not show it on his face. Seeing that no matter if it was open or secret communication, or playing the emotional card, it couldn't change these people's minds, the head of the Yao family had to give up the idea of asking them for help for the time being. However, he didn't continue to attack the snakes, but stared at the snakes with big eyes and small eyes. Thanks seeing this, Leng Ruoxue, who had come with the Ning family's master and the rest to watch the show, couldn't help but talk to Tsang in private. She found out from Tsang that those who had been beaten off the cliff were still alive. This fact made her extremely surprised. How could they still be alive? Leng Ruoxue transmitted her voice to ask curiously. Furthermore, from her tone, it seemed like she was slightly regretful. Hearing this, Tsang, who was lying comfortably in the god-protecting pagoda, could not help but chuckle softly and said, "Girl, if I don't let them die, they won't die. Of course, if Niu doesn't want them to live, then I can naturally fulfill your wish." Ah. Let them live first. Xiaohua is still counting on their money to support his subordinates. Leng Ruoxue wiped away the cold sweat on her forehead and replied helplessly. Since that's the case, let them live a few more days. But, girl, I have good news for you. Tsang kept him in suspense and said mysteriously. What good news? The moment Leng Ruoxue heard this, she immediately perked up and looked like a money grubber. She loved hearing good news the most. There's good stuff at the bottom of this cliff. Azure said with a smile. It loved to see Niu's money-grubbing appearance the most. It was really as cute as it could be. What is it? Leng Ruoxue asked impatiently. She was clear that it was a piece of cake for Tsang to find out what happened at the bottom of the cliff. Niu. When you have time, you'll know when you go down and see for yourself. I have to keep it a secret, or there won't be any surprises. Hee hee. Azure smiled evilly and was determined not to tell Len Ruoxue about the situation below the cliff. Just as the two of them were conversing, suddenly, Len Ruoxue heard a loud rumbling sound. She couldn't help but turn around to take a look, and her beautiful eyes instantly widened. Oh my God! What was this? They saw that a huge creature the size of a small mountain had appeared above the cliff. No. To be precise, it was even bigger than a small mountain. The mountain-like object was actually a snake. It was a fiery red snake that was like a transparent crystal. The snake's diameter was at least 10 meters, and its body was over 1,000 meters long. The beautiful scales on the snake's body were the size of millstones. At this moment, the red snake was glaring at the head of the Yao family with its cold eyes, which were bigger than an adult's fist. The head of the Yao family's hair stood on end. This snake was definitely the largest one he had ever seen. Even the true form of the dragon emperor of the dragon clan was probably only this big. Moreover, he wasn't sure what species this snake was. It didn't look like a blue snake at all because this snake belonged to a species he didn't know of. Could this snake be a variant of the Grey clan? The head of the Yao family mumbled to himself as he sized up the red snake that was staring at him. The other patriarchs present also naturally assumed that this red snake was a mutated species of the blue snake clan. They couldn't help but sigh inwardly. No wonder the blue snake clan dared to provoke the Yao family. It turned out that there was a mutation in their clan. However, wasn't this snake's mutation a little too thorough? One had to know, not to mention the Azure Snake clan, even the strongest of the Snake clan, the Silver Ring Snake clan, didn't have such a large body. There was only one red snake in the divine realm. What was even more unbelievable was that they could not tell the cultivation level of this giant red snake. However, they could feel the aura on the snake's body. They knew that the snake's strength should be around Reverend God level. With that, the old man from the Yao family would have a worthy opponent. With this thought in mind, the few family heads calmed down instead. Because they could clearly feel that this snake was targeting the head of the Yao family, hee. Master Ning, who was also suspicious of the snake's identity, didn't have the same thoughts as the others. Instead, he quietly turned his gaze to Len Ruoxue, who was hiding behind him. When Len Ruoxue saw this, she silently nodded her head. She had been observing the giant red snake for a while now. The more she looked at it, the more familiar it felt to her. Finally, from the tip of the giant red snake's tail, she could confirm that she recognized this snake. Because this snake was Lil Fire. Although Lil Fire had grown bigger, he still had some small habits. But this fact also made her a little horrified. Oh my God! How did such an exquisite and small fellow like Lil Fire suddenly become a huge monster? She couldn't accept this. One must know that the original Little Fire was so beautiful and cute, always forming a ring and wearing a bangle on her wrist. However, the current Little Fire really made her unable to think of all those. She couldn't imagine what it would be like if such a huge fire turned into a bracelet on her wrist. It was quite scary. Chapter 2256, Going Down the Cliff. 1. Just as Len Ruoxue's thoughts were running wild, Xiaohua secretly threw her a flirtatious look and was prepared to find trouble with the head of the Yao family. Yes. It had come up from the bottom of the cliff to find trouble with the Yao family's old man and take revenge for its subordinates. Not long after it came up, the Blue Snake clan also swaggered up from the bottom of the cliff. Looking at the black mass of snakes in front of them, several family masters, including the master of the Ning family, felt their scalps go numb. The number of snakes seemed to have increased. Compared to the others, the master of the Ning family was relatively calm, because he knew that these snakes were inextricably linked to Shui. Naturally, he was not afraid of them, but he did not know if others would be afraid. However, he knew very well that with the appearance of these snakes, if the old man from the Yao family wanted them to help, the price he would have to pay would not be as simple as a blood oath. At least, if it was him, he would definitely take advantage of the situation. Hee hee. It would be a waste not to fight. If they didn't take the opportunity to rob them, the old man of the Yao family wouldn't be grateful to them. In any case, they would hate him, so it was better to let him hate them more thoroughly. Thinking of this, the master of the Ning family quietly sent a message to the others. His purpose was self-evident. After the others learned of the master of the Ning family's intention, they couldn't help but agree in their hearts. With the master of the Ning family taking the lead, they naturally had to respond. After secretly discussing, the 7 people of the Ning family became more and more calm. In the face of such a huge group of snakes, they acted as if they didn't see it. They were only surprised for a moment, and then they did what they should do. From the corner of his eye, he saw their reactions and couldn't help but curse in his heart. Fuck. From the looks of it, these cunning old things would not take the initiative to help him. But he really didn't want to give up. Just as he was about to tell them to help the Yao family head, Zaihu's attack was already in front of him. A thick red snake's tail whistled through the air, bringing with it waves of cold wind as it whipped towards the Yao family head's body. Seeing this, the Yao family head's heart jolted and he hurriedly retreated a few steps before leaping into the air to avoid Zaihu's snake tail attack. However, the cold wind that the snake tail brought still hit him, causing pain in a certain part of his body. Then, he was furious. Fuck. Where did this rogue snake come from? It could hit anywhere, but it targeted the most vulnerable and important part of his body, which was also unusually painful. This pain directly drilled into his heart, causing the head of the Yao family to secretly clench his teeth. However, he absolutely didn't dare to show it, or else it would be too embarrassing, right? However, the people present were either reverent gods or divine emperors, so their eyes were naturally not bad. They also knew where he had been swept by the cold wind brought by the red snake tail. Instantly, everyone couldn't help but sympathize with him. What a pitiful guy. If he were to be hit a few more times, he didn't know if he could still do anything. The head of the Chen clan couldn't help but secretly rejoiced in his misfortune. And Fiery seemed to understand his thoughts. After one attack failed, it really only attacked one place. However, Lil Fire's attack was absolutely not serious, as if it was just teasing the Yao family head. The Yao family head dodged very nimbly, but even so, the most vulnerable part of his body was not spared. Although the thick red snake tail couldn't hit the head of the Yao family, the wind blades brought by the snake tail could sweep his body every time. Even if those wind blades didn't cause him heart-wrenching pain, they were definitely heart-piercing pain. If this happened too many times, even a reverent god would not be able to take it. More importantly, he could tell that this detestable snake was not using its full strength at all. Otherwise, it would not have only used its tail to continuously whip him. This fact made the head of the Yao family angry and resentful, especially when he thought about how he was being treated specially by this damn snake and how there were a few people watching from the side. His heart felt even worse. After all, it didn't feel good to be treated as a joke. At this moment, he thought of Elder Yao Jiao and wanted to find Elder Yao Jiao to deal with this snake with him. However, he was extremely depressed to discover that Elder Yao Jiao was surrounded by a black mass of snakes and couldn't even care about himself. How detestable. The head of the Yao family was even angrier, but Lil Fire's mood was surprisingly good. Hee hee. Lil Fire laughed evilly, then said to the Yao family head with a smile, "Yao family's old brat, this lord will properly play with you today. As for your Yao family's elders, they'll see with their own eyes how he'll play with you." The moment he finished speaking, the Yao family head's face turned even darker. The flames of anger on his body erupted uncontrollably. Leng Ruoxue and the others were all speechless. Toyed with? Wasn't this phrase inappropriate? It was because these words would make people think of some unspeakable things. However, Leng Ruoxue believed that the simple-minded little fire would never do what they thought. That was why it was said that human thoughts were too complicated. They would always let some sensitive words cause their thoughts to run wild. This was not good. Len Ruoshua looked down on herself and her heart for a moment, but she quickly calmed down. Furthermore, she also wanted to see how little Fire was going to play with the Yao family head. Detestable. I won't let you off. The Yao family head, who was so angry that his reaction was half a beat slower, panted heavily as he fiercely said to Lil, Fire. However, Xiaohua didn't care at all. Instead, it wagged its tail fiercely a few times. Then, the people present saw the elders who were hanging upside down immediately wake up after being bitten by the snakes that were hanging them. This scene made the family heads feel a chill. Ugh! He wondered if the snakes were poisonous. The pitiful Yao family elders. How did it end up in the hands of these snakes? However, even though they thought this way, their desire to watch a good show grew stronger and stronger. At this moment, the Yao family elders who had just woken up immediately started wailing at the top of their lungs when they saw the head of the Yao family. Master! Please save us. Woo! These snakes are too evil. Master! These snakes are simply robbers, they robbed all our money and refused to let us go, saying that they want you to come and redeem us. As he listened to the elders' words, the Yao family head's brows furrowed even more. Fuck! Did the snakes lure them here on purpose? Hearing the words of the elders, he deeply felt that it was not impossible. When Xiaohua heard the words of the elders, he did not stop them. Instead, he laughed happily and said, MMH. What they want to say is also what I want to say. If you want to redeem them, you'll have to take out the money. Otherwise, you'll have to leave them here to test the poison. Xiaohua's words made the Yao family head clench his teeth so hard that they creaked. How detestable. It was indeed as he had thought. The head of the Yao family knew that he had been tricked. For Elder Yao Jiu to know about this place, it was clear that he had been deliberately lured here by these snakes. Chapter 2257, Going Down the Cliff, 2, How Detestable. How detestable. The Yao family's head was so angry that he couldn't say a word, and in his heart, he was already cursing Xiaohua to the point where he was drenched in dog blood. However, Lil Fire didn't care what he thought in his heart. It evilly smiled at the Yao family head and suddenly, its huge body split into two. Two giant snakes of the same size instantly appeared in front of everyone. And those two giant red snakes that were exactly the same actually had the same strength. This scene caused everyone present to fall into a state of shock. Oh my god. How was this possible? What kind of mutated species was this? There was actually such an ability. In this way, the head of the Yao family would suffer a great loss when facing this snake. But immediately after, they became happy again, because this meant that the head of the Yao family had to ask for help. Hee hee. With that, they could also bargain with him. Len Ruoshua did not sympathize with the head of the Yao family at all when she saw that the situation was becoming more and more disadvantageous for him. However, she was rather surprised that Lil Fire could actually split himself up. This was such a pleasant surprise. Fire's ability would definitely increase the strength of her side greatly. She just didn't know how many clones Fiery could create. Len Ruoshua couldn't help but think to herself greedily. However, now didn't seem to be the time to think about this. The Yao family's head was still waiting for Xiaohua to deal with him. Sensing Len Ruoxia's thoughts, Xiaohua threw another flirtatious look at her. Then, two giant red snakes that were exactly the same surrounded the Yao family head. They had the same movement, the same expression, and 4 pairs of cold and sinister eyes. They stared at the Yao family head as if they were their prey. After the man and the 2 snakes looked at each other for a few seconds, Lil Fire suddenly exerted force and the thick snake tail once again whipped towards the Yao family head. The Yao family head took the opportunity to dodge, but the tail of the other snake also swept over at the same time. In the end, he avoided one snake tail, but he couldn't avoid the other snake tail, and his back was hit hard. Just this one hit was enough to make the head of the Yao family feel a heart-wrenching pain. This kind of pain was on a completely different level from the previous ones. Furthermore, the area of pain this time was larger, and he almost staggered and fell to the ground. However, Xiaohua didn't give him a chance to think at all. The snake tail whipped over again, and the Yao family head who was in pain also slowed down his reaction. Thus, he tragically suffered another heavy blow in front of him. The head of the Yao family grinned from the pain, but before he could react, he was thrown around like a ball by the two red snakes. Seeing the head of the Yao family suddenly go up and down, sometimes left, sometimes right, and being thrown by two giant snakes, while he himself was completely unable to resist, the sympathy of the Ning family head and the others for him was immediately like a torrential river, endless. However, the Qing family head and the others were more like watching a good show. Seeing the head of the Yao family being treated like this, their mood couldn't be any better. "What are you guys doing? Hurry up and come help." At this time, seeing that he couldn't escape from the hands of these two snakes with his own strength, the head of the Yao family couldn't help but put down his face and ask for help. However, the tone of his words really made the head of the Ning family and the others unhappy, so his words were ignored by the other family heads. However, Master Ning still kindly said, "Everything can be discussed after the blood oath is taken." "Thanks, you still need to pay," the head of the Qin clan added. Fuck. He didn't forget to make him swear a blood oath. Not only that, but he also had to pay for it this time. Hearing this, the head of the Yao family was so angry that he almost vomited blood. However, he did not vomit blood, but his head was really a little dizzy. Who would be able to bear being thrown up and down by two snakes with infinite strength? This was a completely different concept from flying in the air. Even though he did not do much. While they were conversing, Little Fire had thrown the head of the Yao family even higher, causing the head of the Yao family to have no chance and time to bargain with them. Master Ning and the others saw that Master Yao didn't respond, so they watched the show with peace of mind. After a long time, the head of the Yao family, who was already dizzy, once again found an opportunity to speak and anxiously said, "Come and help me. I've agreed to all your conditions." However, his words were weak. In fact, it was already a miracle that he hadn't vomited yet. Elder Yao Jiu, who had received the same treatment as him, had completely fainted. This time, he knew that he couldn't let the master of the Ning family stand by and watch. Otherwise, if this continued, it wouldn't just be the Yao family's disgrace, but their lives as well. Even if these snakes were just toying with them now, it was hard to guarantee that they wouldn't kill them after they had enough fun. However, after hearing his words, the masters still looked at each other. In the end, it was the master of the Ning family who asked with a worried face, "Are you really going to agree to any of our conditions? You won't go back on your word?" "I won tea. He wouldn't tea." "Absolutely not. Hurry up and help," the head of the Yao family shouted anxiously. "Then take a blood oath first. We'll discuss the reward later, but please be prepared. Our reward for helping this time will not be low." The master of the Ning family didn't quite believe his words, and directly said the ugly words first. When the head of the Yao family heard this, he was so angry that he spat out a mouthful of blood, but he forcefully swallowed it back. Fuck. It was really like a tiger falling into the sun. If it was any other time, he would not have given them the chance to rob him, but now, he had no choice but to ask them for help. And the blood oath had to be taken. With a deep depression, the head of the Yao family happily took a blood oath and swore with the Yao family's bloodline that he would not settle the score after this and would also pay the compensation they asked for. After the oath was made, the master of the Ning family and the others were very satisfied, while the master of the Qing family couldn't help but emphasize, "Old man Yao, you're the one who shamelessly begged me for help. I also find you rather pitiful. Otherwise, I wouldn't care about your life or death." In fact, he didn't care about the past because he would be paid, so he could ask for a lot. "I know. Quickly come and help." Although the words of the Qing family's patriarch made the Yao family's patriarch gnash his teeth in hatred, he also knew that he couldn't offend any of them at this time. Otherwise, if they were to shirk their responsibilities, the Yao family would be the one to suffer. "They're here." The head of the Qing family replied somewhat unwillingly, but for the sake of the reward, he was still the first to walk to the side of the red snake and said in a friendly manner, "That. My two friends, can we discuss something?" "What is it?" Hearing this, Lil Fire raised his eyelids and asked. As he spoke, his movements of tossing the Yao family elder did not slow down and still maintained a perfect rhythm. "I'm here to help this old man. However, I don't want to fight with you. So, I want to discuss with you. Can you let this old man go on our account?" Glancing at the huge red snake, the head of the Qing family couldn't help but swallow his saliva. Chapter 2258, Going Down the Cliff, 3. When he said that he didn't want to fight with Lil Fire, he was absolutely sincere. Even though he agreed to help, he would not risk his life for the Yao family. He wasn't that stupid. When the other family heads heard his words, they also stopped in their tracks and looked from a distance. In fact, they didn't think that it would be useful for the Qing family head to discuss with these snakes. After all, they were here for the Yao family. However, the few people who didn't really want to help couldn't help but reveal expectant eyes after seeing the Qing family head discuss with the red snake. If he could save the Yao family without fighting, it would be the most energy-saving and the best way. What benefits do I get? The Qing family head's suggestion made Xiaohua silent for a few seconds before asking, We can give you a portion of the reward that old man Yao is paying us. What do you think? The head of the Qing family thought for a moment and continued to discuss. When Len Ruoxue heard the Qing clan head's words, she was already rolling with laughter in her heart. She didn't expect that the head of the Qing family would actually think of sharing some of the reward with Xiaohua. Wasn't this the so-called commission? And this commission was naturally from the head of the Yao family. He just didn't know how the head of the Yao family would feel after hearing this speech. However, before the head of the Yao family could react, he felt his chest tighten. Then, he was very unfortunately angered by the suggestion of the head of the Qing family and fainted. Seeing this, Xiaohua simply threw the Yao family's head on the ground and said very impolitely, "Then I'll take half of your pay, all right." It admitted that it wanted money more than killing. "Half the reward? I'm fine, but I don't know if they..." Halfway through his words, the master of the Qing family turned his head to the master of the Ning family and the others behind him, and said hesitantly. In fact, in his opinion, even if they only got half of the reward after the event, it would be considered a profit for them, because they only moved their lips and did not put in any physical or mental effort. This money was like they had picked it up for free. There was no faster way to earn money than this. Therefore, he was very willing to pay half of the reward, just to save time and effort. When the other patriarchs heard this, they couldn't wait to nod their heads in agreement. This money was easy to earn. Only a fool would disagree. Seeing that no one objected, Fiery nodded his head in satisfaction and said, "Then it's a deal. You guys better not lie to me. Otherwise, you'll be in deep trouble. Don't worry. As long as we get the reward, we will give you half of it. Now, can you return the Yao family members to us?" The head of the Qing family pointed at the head of the Yao family and the others. When the Yao family elders who had already woken up saw that not only did the head of the Qing family and the others not attack together to kill the snakes, but they had even made a deal with the devil, they were so angry that they fainted. "Sure." Xiaohua looked at the members of the Yao family who had poor endurance and said, "Thank you, brother." Len Ruoxue's face was filled with black lines when she heard Master Cheng and Xiaohua calling each other brothers. Master Ning's mouth kept twitching. "You bastard! Did this old man have to be so embarrassing?" Although they thought this way in their hearts, Master Ning and the others acted quickly. After getting Xiaohua's approval, they immediately went forward to rescue the Yao family. Just as they were about to leave, they were stopped by Xiaohua again. "Wait. This is the snake venom that your clansmen need, take it." Lil Fire threw them a sparkling and translucent jade bottle. "Thank you," he said. The head of the Qing family said with a face full of surprise. He didn't expect this giant red snake to be so loyal. Originally, he was afraid that the other party didn't trust them, so he wanted to wait until they paid their reward before asking for the snake poison. Who knew that he would get it now? This result further strengthened his determination to make the Yao family bleed. After watching Master Ning and his group leave, the snake leader looked at Lil Fire with a puzzled face and asked hesitantly, "Wang, if we just let the Yao family off like this, wouldn't it be too easy on them?" It felt that the punishment the Yao family had received was not enough. The ransom they received seemed to be too little. If we don't let them go, why would they give us half of the reward? Remember, our main goal is to seek wealth. Lil Fire said as if it was a matter of course. After getting the money, we can just capture the Yao family members. Xiaohua glanced at the confused azure snakes and added, "Wang Yingming. Why didn't we think of that?" Upon hearing this, the snake leader was overjoyed. Thanks Len Ruoxue, who had returned quietly, happened to overhear their conversation. She broke out in a cold sweat. Ugh! Lil Fire had learned the wrong things. And it was not just ordinarily bad. When did this happen? Why didn't she notice it at all? However, she believed that if the Yao family knew what Little Fire was thinking, they might be directly angered to death. After all, when she heard what Little Fire said, she deeply felt that Little Fire was really too detestable. Not to mention the others. Hee hee. I like this idea. Not bad, Lil Fire, you've improved, you know how to use your brain. At this moment, Tsang came out from the god-protecting pagoda and naturally took over Len Ruoxu's arms. As for Xiaohua, the moment it heard this voice, it immediately raised its head in surprise and said, "Boss. My performance wasn't bad, right?" After it turned white, the small fire immediately shrunk and wrapped itself around Len Ruoxu's wrist. It continued to speak smugly, "Woman, I've got money again. Congratulations." Len Ruoxue was a little speechless. When did Lil Fire acknowledge Tsang as its boss? Why did she not know? This fact made her feel a little disappointed. Tsang could sense Len Ruoxu's thoughts and rubbed against her in a coquettish manner. There was even a trace of an evil smile on his face. Its current goal was to become the boss of Nyo and the other beasts. Then, Azure's pitch-black eyes swept across the snakes, and the leader's spirit was instantly roused. When it first saw the cat, it was wondering why the king called a cat boss. But now it knew that this cat was definitely not to be trifled with. In addition to the man who made it feel fear and the seemingly harmless woman in front of it, who also made its heart tremble, the leading snake felt a deep sense of pressure. There were many people or beasts around the king that this little azure snake could not afford to provoke. It had already understood this. At the same time, he was also glad that he had found a good boss. At least, the Azure Snake clan would no longer be bullied by humans or beasts in the divine realm. They would also have a backer. This fact made the snake leader, who was under a lot of pressure, feel relieved. It had never felt so relaxed before. In the future, even if they offended someone, they would no longer have to hide here and there. Sob. This was too blissful. At the thought of this, the snake leader couldn't help but burst into tears. When Len Ruoxue saw this, she couldn't help but sigh to herself. This was still a sentimental snake. After sighing, she moved the evil demon and the others out of the bracelet. Seeing this, Tsang knew that Nyo was planning to go down to the bottom of the cliff to investigate. Hee hee. What an impatient girl. However, Dongfang Yu and the others, who had been moved out of the bracelet, were a little confused, especially since they had seen everything that had happened outside and heard their conversation through the light screen in the bracelet. Therefore, they looked at Xiaohua with a strange look. Dongfang Yu and Uncle Lien couldn't help but sigh in their hearts. The people and beasts by this girl's side were all so shrewd and knew how to make money. It was no wonder that she had obtained wealth that even they didn't dare to imagine in just a few short years after coming to the immortal realm. Ugh! This should be the legendary, comparing gods to gods, and angering the god of death. The two of them were very sad. Back then, they were also powerful in the immortal realm, but why didn't they think of saving more money? As a result, they were so short of money now. Just thinking about it made them blush. Unfortunately, Len Ruoxue wouldn't give them too much time to wallow in their sorrow. She glanced at Dongfang Yu and the rest who were still in a daze and said, "Let's go down to the bottom of the cliff and take a look." "Ah. Shuer, are you sure?" Dongfang Lin couldn't help but ask. No one had ever gone down the cliff near the Yao clan's divine realm. It wasn't that no one wanted to go down, but that they couldn't. This was because poisonous mist would be produced in the middle of the cliff, and no antidote could detoxify it. More importantly, anyone who inhaled the poison would die. Therefore, since ancient times, this seemingly small cliff had become an unsolved mystery of the divine realm. Of course. Azure said there's something good down there, so I must go down and take a look. Len Ruoxue's will was unusually firm. But it's very dangerous down there. There's a lot of poisonous gas. We can't go down. Dongfang Lin reminded. "TSK. You can't go down because you're too weak." "How can I go down to the bottom of the cliff?" Sang said with a look of disdain. However, when Dongfang Lin heard Sang's words, he was deeply worried and couldn't help but mutter in his heart, "Are you even human? Are you even human? Your skin is so thick, how can we compare?" Coincidentally, at this time, Fiery also supported Azure and said, "Boss is right, I can also go down. There's a lot of good stuff down there." Lil Fire's interjection made Dongfang Lin even more speechless, even though he really wanted to say, "You're poisonous." They liked poison and were not afraid of the poisonous fog, but they couldn't. But thinking about it, he still didn't dare to say it out loud. Otherwise, if he angered Azure and Fiery, the unlucky one would definitely be him. As he thought of this, he could not help but turn his resentful gaze towards Len Ruoxue. He stared at her without saying a word. Len Ruoxue's hair stood on end under his gaze. She only said one sentence, "Go down." He pulled evildoer and jumped off the cliff with Tsang. Chapter 2259 Sister, I want to eat meat. 1. When the others saw this, they could only follow behind Len Ruoxue and jump down. After all, they were not willing to be looked down upon by Len Ruoxue. However, the cliff was not a beautiful place. As soon as they jumped down, they felt the whistling cold wind hitting their bodies. The cold wind had turned into real wind blades. Even though Dongfang Yu and the others were reverent god-level cultivators, they could still feel the pain. Moreover, it was extremely cold down there. In just a moment, they shivered from the cold and their breathing became faster. Seeing this, Tsang curled his lips in disdain. Then, he waved his claw and a faint halo enveloped everyone. Dongfang Yu and the others immediately felt much better and their breathing became smoother. However, when they raised their heads, they saw Tsang's disdainful gaze. This fact made them smile bitterly. But what made them even more depressed was that from the corner of their eyes, they saw Lil Fire leading a group of snakes and slithering around them happily and easily. The snakes were not protected by any barriers, but they were able to enter the bottom of the cliff as if there was no one there. Seeing this scene, Dongfang Yu and the others were envious. They were indifferent to Tsang's disdain. All right. They admitted that they were not as good as him. After they calmed down, they began to enjoy the protection of the azure. However, when they crossed the thick fog halfway up the cliff, their hearts still jumped to their throats. One must know that the thick fog had already turned black because of the poison. It was so scary to look at it, let alone go down to the bottom of the cliff from the fog. Feeling as if 10,000 years had passed, Dongfang Yu and the rest finally crossed the thick fog under Tsang's protection. When they saw a ray of light, they immediately became excited. After all, this meant that they were safe. At the same time, it also meant that they had the opportunity to explore the unsolvable secrets of the divine realm. When they finally reached the bottom of the cliff, everyone was shocked. None of them had expected to see such a scene. In front of them, hundreds of flowers bloomed and the trees formed a shade. It was a scene of spring full of vitality. The bottom of the cliff seemed to be a world of its own. There was a blue sky, and the warm sun hung high in the sky. Even the air carried a faint fragrance of flowers. Many cute little animals playing in the distance showed a slight panic when they saw so many people suddenly appear in their homes. They hid behind the trees and flowers, only sticking out their small heads and peeking at them. When Leng Ruoxue saw this scene, she was instantly mesmerized by the cuteness of these small animals. Furthermore, these small animals were basically harmless and gentle breeds like foxes and rabbits. Their bodies were also much smaller than those outside. Song, is this the world at the bottom of the cliff? Leng Ruoxue caressed Song's soft fur and asked softly. Hee. Of course. However, girl, these little beasts aren't real animals. They're the elves of this place. Azure said with a smile. Elves? When Dongfang Yu and the others heard this answer, they were all shocked. They didn't know since when did elves like to appear in the form of beasts. Was it to act cute? It was undeniable that elves in this state were much cuter. However, few people would associate these little guys with elves. Thanks. As for Leng Ruoxue, she was rather calm after hearing Wan Sang's words. This was because there were two sprites in their beast forms by her side. To be more precise, one of them was an artifact spirit. Sang. They look very timid. Won't we scare them with so many people? At this moment, Leng Ruoxue could not help but ask. I1T. They're the gutsy ones. It's just that I'm not used to seeing you guys for the first time. Azure said indifferently. As if to prove its words, just as Tsang's voice fell, a snow-white little fox the size of a palm bounced towards Leng Ruoxue's legs and rubbed against her legs coquettishly. Then, it spoke in a baby voice, Sister, are you here to give us something delicious? When they heard this, Leng Ruoxue and the others could not help but feel embarrassed. What did they just hear? This little fox actually asked them for food. Could it be that elves were also foodies? This fact broke their understanding of elves. After all, although the legendary rare elves were rare, it wasn't as if they had never been seen before. However, they had never heard of any elf being so delicious. Although Leng Ruoxue was a little bewildered, she had never been able to reject the requests of cute little animals. Therefore, she quickly took out a red fruit that was slightly bigger than the little fox's fist and stuffed it into the little fox's paw. Eat. Leng Ruoxue chuckled. Sister. I want to eat meat. The little fox looked at the fruit in its paws and said with a face full of grievance. Although the fruit smelled very fragrant and was full of spiritual energy, it did not lack all kinds of fruits. Therefore, this fruit was not rare to it and it did not like it very much. When Leng Ruoxue heard the little fox's words, she was stunned for a long time and remained silent. This little fox-like elf was asking for meat from her with an aggrieved expression. This was too horrifying, wasn't it? One had to know that the cute little guys in her bracelet were not carnivorous elves. Why did she see a carnivorous elf at the bottom of the cliff? Moreover, looking at the little fox's expression of desire, she couldn't refuse. However, she couldn't help but think to herself, is it really good to give meat to elves? Seeing her struggle, Azure smiled and comforted her, Girl, let them eat. It's all right. After all, elves had been vegetarians for a long time, so it was normal for them to want a change of taste. Don't I also eat meat often? Can they compare to you? Leng Ruoxue asked, feeling speechless. Hee. Of course not, but although they're not as high-end as I am, it's no problem for them to eat some meat. Azure said arrogantly. Are you sure? Leng Ruoxue asked worriedly. She was afraid that these little fairies who were supposed to be vegetarian would get sick from eating too much. I'm sure, and I'm certain. Sang patted his chest as he promised. The little fox beside Leng Ruoxue's legs also nodded its head, as if it was guaranteeing that it wouldn't get a stomachache. However, it seemed to be afraid of Tsang and didn't dare to look at him directly. All right then. Leng Ruoxue was helpless, but what else could she say? Following that, she took out a piece of meat from her bangle that had been cooked until it was soft and passed it to the little fox. The little fox took the steaming hot meat and greedily took a few deep breaths. Then, she sat down by Leng Ruox's feet and elegantly took small bites of the bone. Chapter 2260 Sister, I want to eat meat, too. The fragrance of the meat and bones quickly attracted the small animals who were hiding in fear. Leng Ruox's heart softened when she saw the little ones staring at her. She took out more meat and bones and distributed them to them. After that, Dongfang Yu and the others were dumbfounded as they watched the elves gnawing on the bones and gobbling them up. This was an unforgettable experience for them. At the same time, the master of the Ning family and the others had already sent the Yao family back to the main house. However, the head and elders of the Yao family had yet to wake up. In the garden of the Yao family's main courtyard, the head of the Yao family and the elders of the Yao family were arranged side by side on the ground. The head of the Ning family and the others stood on the side, watching them without blinking. At this time, the family heads had already discussed the amount of the reward and were just waiting for the Yao family head to wake up and pay the reward. The master of the Ning family was even more anxious. He already knew that Shuer and the others had reached the bottom of the cliff, so he naturally didn't want to let go of this opportunity to explore. However, the old man of the Yao family refused to wake up, wasting his precious time. This fact made him angrier the more he thought about it, so when he tried to wake up the master of the Yao family, he was not so gentle. Bang! With another sound, Master Ning kicked Master Yao's body again. He had already lost count of how many times he had kicked, but even so, Master Yao was still unconscious. Seeing him like this, several black lines couldn't help sliding down the foreheads of the Qing clan's clan head and the others. Was this the rhythm of taking advantage of the situation to take revenge? Otherwise, there was no other way to explain Master Ning's abnormal actions. With him taking the lead, the other family heads no longer treated the Yao family head lightly. The head of the Yao family, who had been tormented like this, finally woke up after coughing a few times. In fact, he had been conscious for a long time, but he was unwilling to wake up, let alone face these people. However, what made him angry was that these people seemed to not let him go until he woke up. Therefore, after being kicked countless times, he really could not pretend anymore. When the Qing clan's clan head saw that he had woken up, he hurriedly ran in front of him in excitement and loudly said, "Old man Yao, you're finally awake. This is great. Hurry up and pay us. We still have to go back to the inn to rest. I'm so tired today." Hearing this and seeing the numerous footprints on his body, the head of the Yao family was so angry that he almost fainted again. However, the head of the Qing family, who was the closest to him, was quick-witted and hurriedly helped him massage his back. He only coughed a few times and didn't faint. "Old man Yao, don't be so agitated. Your health is more important." Seeing this, the head of the Qing clan consoled her with an understanding look. "Right, quickly pay the reward. If you really want to faint, you can faint however you want after you've paid the reward, alright?" Seeing that the other party didn't respond, the head of the Qing family could only continue. The head of the Yao family was so angry that he was at a loss for words. He pointed at the head of the Qing family and couldn't even complete a sentence. At this time, the master of the Ning family also said impatiently, "Old man Yao, hurry up and pay the reward, we are still waiting." "Thanks, how did you save us? Did you kill those snakes?" Hearing this, the head of the Yao family suppressed his anger and asked. He still remembered clearly why he had fainted. If he didn't figure out what had happened after that, he would feel aggrieved about the reward. "We had an agreement with the snakes, so we saved you and the elders of the Yao family. As for the snakes, we didn't kill them." The head of the Qing family blinked his eyes and said with unusual honesty. "We didn't kill those snakes, and you still have the nerve to ask us for compensation? Do you think I'm stupid?" The head of the Yao family roared in anger. He was so angry that his chest heaved up and down, and his face was flushed red. "Don't tell me that saving you doesn't count. Why did you insist on helping your Yao family kill those snakes?" The head of the Qing family asked in disbelief. Fuck. He knew that the old man from the Yao family was not a man of his word, but he didn't expect that he would try to deny it after saving them. Humph. How could there be such a good thing? He would never allow such a thing to happen. When the other family heads heard the Yao family head's accusation, they were obviously a little angry. Their expressions were not very good. However, with the Qing family head as a representative, they temporarily maintained their silence. Of course. I'm asking you for help to kill those snakes. Otherwise, I wouldn't have paid you. Hearing this, the head of the Yao family quickly said, but he was secretly happy. He didn't say he wouldn't pay. However, if he asked them to kill those snakes, the blood oath would not be able to do anything to him. Because he had not broken his oath. Are you sure that you won't be paid for saving you? The head of the Qing clan asked after some thought. Of course. I want you to help me kill those snakes. The head of the Yao clan said with absolute certainty. If that's the case, then we can only apologize. Master Cheng and Master Ning looked at each other and smiled. Ah. What do you mean by that? Seeing the Qing clan head smile, a hint of uneasiness suddenly welled up in the Yao clan head's heart. He kept feeling that something was about to happen, but he couldn't put his finger on what was wrong. It means that since saving you doesn't count and you won't pay us, we have to send you back to those snakes. As for our deal, it's over. The head of the Qing clan laughed evilly. That's right. We're not doing business with your Yao family anymore. In the future, if your Yao family has any problems, you'll have to pay us first. Otherwise, don't expect us to help you. The master of the Ning family added. Hearing this, the master of the Yao family was dumbfounded. However, he still didn't believe that the masters of the 8 great divine domains would send the Yao family back to their enemies without caring about their friendship. But when he saw the head of the Qing family really use a rope to tie up the elders of the Yao family, and the head of the Ning family also walk towards him with a rope in hand, he really panicked. Now that he was alone, if they really fought, he was definitely not the opponent of these 7 people. Moreover, he also felt the anger of these 7 people, so he pointed at the master of the Ning family and couldn't say a complete sentence for a long time. You, what about me? Old man Yao, since you didn't keep your word, you can't blame us. Master Ning said with a calm face, but the rope in his hand did not hold back at all. In a few moves, he tied the furious Master Yao into a hairpin, so fast that he did not even have the chance to resist. You can't do this. We are all part of the 8 great divine regions. In a moment of desperation, Master Yao's words became sharp. His eyes were red as he glared at Master Ning, his eyes full of flames of anger. You also know that we're one of the 8 great divine regions? Humph. You didn't keep your word first, so you can't blame us. The master of the Ning family said fiercely. Chapter 2261 Sister, I want to eat meat. 3. Old man Ning, why are you wasting your breath on him? Just tie him up and throw him to those snakes. At this time, the head of the Qing family, who had already packed up the unconscious elders of the Yao family, interrupted. Yes, we shouldn't talk nonsense with him. Let's go and find those snakes. After Master Ning finished speaking, he directly picked up Master Yao and prepared to leave. At this time, the Yao family's head butler saw that the situation was not right and had already gathered many clansmen to block the main courtyard's entrance. Seeing that they were about to leave, the Yao family's head butler mustered his courage and shouted, "Let go of the master." Yo! There really are people who aren't afraid of death. Seeing this, the head of the Qing family laughed happily. Then, he walked step by step towards the head butler of the Yao family. Seeing this, the head butler of the Yao family was so scared that he retreated. Don't dodge. Aren't you very courageous? The head of the Qing family teased. The Yao family's head butler was so nervous that his forehead was covered in cold sweat, and he stuttered. Most importantly, these people were the family masters of the 8 divine regions, and his own family master was in their hands. He couldn't afford to offend any of them. If you know what's good for you, move. Otherwise, it'll tie you up as well. The head of the Qing family threatened, but the head butler didn't dare to back down in front of the head of the Yao family. Otherwise, if the head of the Qing family was safe and sound, he would be the one in trouble. At this moment, the Yao family's head butler was extremely regretful. Why did he have to step out? Great, now it's too late to stop. He really regretted it so much that his intestines turned green. However, the head of the Yao family didn't know what was going on in the head butler's mind. Seeing the head butler's unyielding expression, he was deeply gratified. Unfortunately, the head butler's strength was too low and couldn't save him at all. This fact made the head of the Yao family both anxious and angry. After thinking for a long time, he finally said, "Let me go, and I'll pay you, okay?" "All right." "Of course. However, given your past record, we really don't believe in your credibility. So, pay us our reward first, and then we'll let you go." The master of the Ning family smiled. Their main goal was money. Unless they had no other choice, why would they send the head of the Yao family back? That's right. Pay the reward first. Otherwise, what if I let you go and you go back on your word? We don't want to waste our time. The head of the Qing clan agreed. When the other patriarchs heard these words, they all nodded their heads. In truth, they had already discussed this through voice transmission earlier. If this still couldn't make the Yao clan's old man submit, then they really could only send the Yao clan's patriarch back. Otherwise, wouldn't the Yao clan's old man look down on the 7 families even more in the future? If you don't let me go, how am I supposed to get your reward? Hearing the words of the 2 people, the head of the Yao family was so angry that he gritted his teeth. That's your problem. The head of the Qing clan laughed. If you don't let me go, I can't get my reward. I'm the only one who can open the treasure vault. The head of the Yao family said after taking a few deep breaths. Like this? The Qing clan's patriarch pretended to think, while the Yao clan's patriarch hurriedly nodded and looked at them with anticipation. However, the master of the Ning family, who saw through his thoughts, said, "Even if that's the case, I can't let you go first. In my opinion, you should still authorize your Yao family's most loyal steward to get your reward." That's a good idea. The head of the Qing clan nodded in agreement. All right then. Now that things had come to this, there was no point in saying anything more. The head of the Yao family also understood that these people would not let him go until they saw the rabbit. If he didn't bleed, they would definitely not let him go. "Head butler, come closer," the head of the Yao clan said. Hearing his family head's words, the head butler, who was trembling with fear, walked forward. The Yao family head whispered a few words to him, and the head butler nodded. Just as he was about to leave, he was stopped by the Qing family head. "Wait. If you don't show us the list of remuneration we asked for, do you know how much remuneration we'll give you?" After saying this, the head of the Qing clan directly handed a few thin pieces of paper to the head butler of the Yao clan and added, "If the items on the list aren't there, items of equivalent value are fine too. In short, the required value on the list must not be less." "I got it." Great Butler Yao quickly nodded. He didn't even dare to look at those pieces of paper and ran away as if he had seen a ghost. After the head butler left, the head of the Ning family and the head of the Yao family stared at each other. The head of the Qing family couldn't help but mumble, "Old man Yao. If only you had been so happy earlier, you would have obediently paid the reward only after such a scene happened." Sigh. "I really don't know what to say to you. You're really losing more than you gain by doing this." Yes. Old man Yao's actions had infuriated them, so they doubled the reward. Now, after paying the reward, the Yao family would probably suffer a great loss. However, they didn't sympathize with him. After all, the things he had done were really not well liked. Thanks, the original intention of the heads of the Qing and Ning families was to attack the Yao family. Although this would deepen their enmity with the Yao family, it wouldn't be easy for top families without huge wealth to cause trouble again. Therefore, they believed that after this massive loss, the Yao family should be able to take a break for a few days. After waiting for a long time, the Yao family's head butler, who seemed to have lost his parents, finally returned. However, the Yao family's head steward's expression was extremely ugly, but he still carefully handed the storage ring to the Ning family's master. The Ning family's master scanned it with his divine sense and knew the value of the things inside. Then, he nodded in satisfaction and let the Yao family's master go. Seeing this, the head of the Cheng family followed suit and released the Yao family elders. After that, the few people who had received the reward didn't give the Yao family head a chance to ask them to leave. They tactfully took their leave first. If they didn't leave now, when would they? After they left, the Yao family's head butler pulled a long face and sobbed, "Master, we don't have much money left." "What did you just say?" The head of the Yao family thought he had heard wrong and hurriedly asked. "Master, we don't have much money left." The Yao clan's head butler repeated. "Where's the money? Don't I still have a lot of treasures in my treasury?" The head of the Yao family asked in disbelief. Although he had lost a lot of blood during this period of time, the wealth that the Yao family had accumulated over the years could not be lost in a short time. How could they not have money? There were a lot of them, but they've all been given to Master Ning as remuneration. The head butler of the Yao family whispered. In fact, when he was receiving the remuneration, he was also frightened. However, when he thought about how the head of the family and the elders were held hostage in the hands of others, he could only heartlessly put away the family head's many years of collection for her. When he was packing those things, his heart was also bleeding with pain. Damn it! Hearing this, the head of the Yao family quickly ran to his treasure vault. When he went in to take a look, it was almost empty. There were only a few small things left in the corner. Then, he took the access records and the list of rewards that the master of the Ning family and the others had asked for. When he saw it, he became even more furious. Detestable! I won't just let it go like this. The head of the Yao family roared fiercely, his voice reverberating through the empty treasury. In fact, he had been too careless, or rather, he had been muddled with anger. He had actually forgotten to ask what the other party had asked for as a reward, and had not thought of bargaining. It seemed that he had wanted to quickly send these people away. As a result, the blood he lost this time was a bit more. This fact made the furious head of the Yao family unable to vent his anger, and his hatred for the two heads of the Ning and Qing families deepened. Sooner or later, I'm going to take care of you guys. The head of the Yao clan cursed. Yes. At this time, he hated the other 7 family heads together. However, he was not stupid enough to deal with them together. As for now, he would just let them live a few days of leisure. With this thought, the head of the Yao family calmed down, but his heart became even darker. In the next few days, the Yao family was in a state of low pressure. The Yao family members didn't even dare to breathe loudly for fear of angering their ancestor. On the other side, after the master of the Ning family and the others returned to the inn, they immediately divided the items in the storage ring into 2. Half was the reward for the 7 of them, and the other half was promised to the snakes. After distributing the rewards equally among the 7 people, the master of the Ning family handed over the rewards for the Blue Snake clan to the master of the Qing family for safekeeping. Then, the master of the Ning family found an excuse and quietly left the inn, teleporting in the direction of the cliff. As soon as he reached the cliff, the master of the Ning family saw Tsang waiting at the edge of the cliff. Then, Tsang took him down to the bottom of the cliff. Before he could express his thoughts about the world at the bottom of the cliff, he saw that Shuai and the others had become the chefs of the small beasts at the bottom of the cliff, making delicious food for them in all kinds of ways. The master of the Ning family was really envious, jealous, and hateful of the treatment the little beasts received. However, when he found out that these small beasts were not real beasts but elves, he widened his eyes and opened his mouth in disbelief, just like Dongfang Yu and the others. A meat-eating elf. The master of the Ning family was horrified. As for Leng Ruoxue, who had told him the truth, she couldn't help but snicker to herself when she saw her godfather's expression. Bad girl, you're actually laughing at your godfather. Master Ning glared at Leng Ruoxue as he snapped back to his senses. Hee hee. Godfather, what's wrong with that? When Dongfang Yu and the others first heard about this, they were no better than you. So, you don't have to be shy. Leng Ruoxue coaxed. Chapter 2262, Help-Seeking, 1. After she said that, it was Dongfang Yu and the others' turn to feel embarrassed. Thinking about it carefully, they were too flustered. However, it was understandable for them to be surprised since it was their first time meeting an elf who liked to eat meat, right? The few of them adjusted themselves. Hee hee. It seems that I'm not the only one who is surprised. By the way, Shuai, is there anything good down there? The master of the Ning family saw the awkwardness of Dongfang Yu and the others, so he smiled and changed the topic at the same time. Dongfang Yu and the others were relieved. They really didn't want to worry about whether they were surprised or not. Not yet. We're waiting for Godfather to come, so we can explore together. Leng Ruoxue laughed. Good girl, I didn't dote on you for nothing. Hearing this, the master of the Ning family was happy. At this time, he saw a few dog-like elves running towards him with a few red fruits on their backs. He was surprised. What are these little guys doing? It wasn't until the puppies ran in front of him and put the fruits on their backs to the master of the Ning family that he realized that these little guys were here to entertain guests. Hee hee. She was really too cute. The master of the Ning family bent down and picked up one of the black puppies. He looked at it carefully and found that this little guy was exactly the same as the little black dog in Shuai's bracelet. They were like twins. It was really interesting. Human, let me down. The puppy struggled with all four of its legs. It was not used to being held by humans, which made it feel very insecure. When Master Ning saw the trace of fear in the little black dog's clear black eyes, he felt even more tender towards this little fellow. He gently stroked the little black dog's soft fur and comforted it. Little guy, don't be afraid. I won't hurt you. Seeing this, Leng Ruoxue couldn't help but laugh. Godfather, these little fellows are very timid. You should put it down first. We'll have plenty of opportunities to do so in the future. All right then. The master of the Ning family said reluctantly. He didn't know if it was because he was old, but now he couldn't bear to let go of such a cute little thing. However, this little thing was indeed a little weak, as if it would break with a touch. By the way, little girl, what kind of sprites are these little guys? After reluctantly putting down the little black dog, Master Ning couldn't help but ask curiously. Can you guess? Leng Ruoxue smiled without saying a word, keeping them in suspense. The others also had strange expressions on their faces. Seeing this, the Ning family's master also guessed that these little things could not be treated with common sense. Thinking of this, Master Ning's eyes began to search the world at the bottom of the cliff. At first glance, he found that this was really a paradise. Not only was the air fresh, but the spiritual qi was rich, and the sun was very warm. The light breeze was very comfortable when it blew on the body. Compared with the upper and middle sections of the cliff, it was simply two different worlds. However, as far as he could see, there were either bright flowers or huge, healthy trees, so he really couldn't guess what kind of elves these little guys were. Is this little black dog a tree spirit? The master of the Ning family made wild guesses. Human, I'm the tree spirit. At this moment, an old face appeared on the tree closest to them. Even the voice that spoke had a sense of vicissitudes that had seen through the world. Ah! The master of the Ning family was embarrassed. In fact, he just wanted to guess, because this little black dog was completely black. He really couldn't associate it with those beautiful and bright flowers, so he could only guess that it was a tree. But he didn't expect the tree spirit to have an opinion. Thanks oh. He could treat that slightly dissatisfied face as if he had an opinion, right? Master Ning's face was red and his heart was beating fast in embarrassment. However, Leng Ruoxue and the others laughed when they saw Master Ning's awkward situation. They couldn't hold it in any longer. Leng Ruoxue had never realized that her godfather was so funny. He could actually guess the tree spirit's identity and even made the tree spirit unhappy, hee. Master Ning saw that they were laughing so happily and spread his hands in grievance. He said with an innocent face, "Laugh all you want. Laugh all you want. I'll let you guys laugh as much as you want." Hearing this, everyone laughed even more heartily. Leng Ruoxue laughed so hard that tears were about to fall. As for the snow-white little fox that was closer to Leng Ruoxue, although it did not understand why everyone was laughing so happily, seeing that these humans were in a good mood, it also laughed foolishly. Only the little black dog and the other little beasts who had been carried by the Ning family master had a confused look on their faces, as well as some confusion. When they were done laughing, Leng Ruoxue noticed that her godfather's face had turned a little dark. Seeing this, she quickly used all her skills and coaxed him for a long time before Master Ning finally smiled. In fact, the master of the Ning family was not really angry. He was just trying to scare the little girl who was smiling happily. Now that he had coaxed her, he naturally enjoyed it and was not too angry. However, the first elder couldn't bear to see his proud appearance, so after rolling his eyes at the Ning family master, he ignored him and ran to play with the little beasts. After the master of the Ning family found out that the little black dog was a flower spirit, he was stunned for a long time before he finally came back to his senses. But after he came back to his senses, he looked at the little black dog with even more surprise. He didn't stop until the little black dog's hair stood on end and ran away. Following that, the group chatted and laughed for a while before Leng Ruoxue took the initiative to ask about the Yao family's situation. After learning that her godfather and the rest had robbed the Yao family of a large sum of money, Leng Ruoxue felt some sympathy for them. The Yao family had been robbed one after another, and they had no choice but to fork out a large sum of money. She wondered if the old man of the Yao family could take the blow. Furthermore, she recalled what Xiaohua had said about capturing the Yao family again. Instantly, her sympathy for the Yao family deepened. However, she also understood the head of the Yao family. She knew that the old man was like a cockroach that couldn't be killed. Even if his vitality was greatly damaged, he probably wouldn't stop and might find out more. However, she was not too worried about this. Qing Ju had always been monitoring the Yao family. If there was really something, Zhang would tell her. Thinking of this, she decided to investigate this world at the bottom of the cliff. As for the Yao family, she would put it aside for now. Godfather, since we've reached the bottom of the cliff, let's not think about the Yao family anymore. Let's go on an adventure now. Leng Ruoxue suggested after some thought. Yes, yes. The master of the Ning family could not ask for more. His interest in this place was definitely no less than Xuer's. With this thought in mind, everyone quickly prepared to set off. However, before they left, the snow-white little fox blocked their way and said in a baby voice, "Sister, this is my territory. I'll take you for a walk." Hearing this, everyone was more than happy to hear it. The little fox jumped into Leng Ruoxue's arms and fought for territory with Zhang. Zhang was instantly displeased. However, the little fox didn't seem to see Zhang's anger and laid calmly in Leng Ruoxue's arms. Zhang was so angry that he gritted his teeth. Chapter 2263, Help Seeking, 2. Seeing this, Leng Ruoxue hurriedly appeased Zhang. Only when she appeased the furious Zhang Yu was the matter of the fight for her father's favor successfully resolved. After that, everyone saw Zhang arrogantly glance at the little white fox. The red disdain in his eyes was not hidden at all. This fact made everyone feel very helpless. However, that little fox's mental state was extremely good. It was not afraid at all and even changed into a more comfortable position in Leng Ruoxue's arms. Seeing that Zhang was about to flare up again, Leng Ruoxue quickly gave everyone a look. Everyone understood and set off in a hurry. Leng Ruoxue and the others were in a good mood as they walked on the small path at the bottom of the cliff. The scenery at the bottom of the cliff was simply too beautiful. Moreover, there were cute little beasts jumping around everywhere, shuttling back and forth between the flowers and trees. The atmosphere was rather warm and harmonious. Under the little fox's lead, Leng Ruoxue and the rest did not take any wrong paths. With the little fox's permission, Leng Ruoxue transplanted many precious medicinal herbs into the bangle. These medicinal herbs had not grown for a long time and had not developed any spiritual intelligence. Therefore, the little fox was naturally very generous. After walking for an unknown amount of time, the little fox brought everyone to a cave. The cave was very small, and the entrance was about half the height of a person. If an adult wanted to enter, they would have to bend down, and only one person could enter at a time. When they arrived, the little fox jumped out of Leng Ruoxue's arms and ran in first. However, after running a few steps, it realized that Leng Ruoxue and the rest were still staring at the cave in a daze and had not followed its footsteps. It could not help but call out, "Sister, over here." "They're here." Leng Ruoxue returned to her senses and revealed a faint smile. Then, she entered first, and the others followed closely behind. Upon entering the cave, Leng Ruoxue was surprised to find that the cave was unusually humid. She could not even see her fingers in front of her. In addition, there was a faint smell of sulfur in the air. Leng Ruoxue's curiosity was piqued. He wondered what was in the cave. With a trace of doubt, Leng Ruoxue and the rest followed behind the little fox and walked into the cave. Leng Ruoxue lit up a flame. The heat and light of the flame instantly lit up the area in front of them, but it also caused the temperature of the cave to rise abruptly, scaring Master Ning and the rest so much that they quickly jumped away from Leng Ruoxue. Shuai's flames were not to be taken lightly. They couldn't take it. Seeing their reaction, Leng Ruoxue could only smile helplessly. "Godfather, why are you hiding so far away? This isn't my life flame." "Ah. If it's not my life flame, why is the temperature so high?" Master Ning asked in disbelief. "There's sulfur here, and it's reacting with my flames," Leng Ruoxue explained. Even though she didn't know if that was the case, it was a fact that her flames had become hotter. "Hee hee. Girl, you've also learned how to make things up." Just as Leng Ruoxue's words fell, Tsang's voice rang out in Leng Ruoxue's mind. Thanks, Tsang's words made Leng Ruoxue extremely embarrassed. She admitted that she was speaking nonsense. However, other than that, she really could not think of any other explanation. It couldn't be that her fire attribute Shin power had also advanced, right? "Nyo. Although your life flame hasn't completely advanced to the level of chaotic divine flame, it's only one step away. And chaotic divine flame is the head of all flames, so it's normal for it to affect your fire attribute divine power." Tsang could sense Leng Ruoxue's thoughts and explained with a smile. "Ah. Was this really the case? Does that mean I won't be able to use fire attribute divine power easily in the future? Otherwise, wouldn't the other party die the moment they make a move?" Leng Ruoxue said with a slight headache. The fire attribute divine power was the one she used the most, and the fire attribute divine skill was also the one she was most comfortable with. Once she couldn't use it often, she wouldn't be used to it. Moreover, if she didn't use the fire attribute divine skill, her attack power would also decrease sharply. So what if they die? As long as Nyo is happy, what's the big deal with a few deaths? Those are all ants. When Tsang heard this, he said disapprovingly. However, Leng Ruoxue broke out in a cold sweat. She was not a homicidal maniac, okay? Although the strong were respected in the divine realm, in reality, she was not willing to take other people's lives unless she had no other choice. The people she had killed were all enemies who had come to her door to seek death. Therefore, she would not feel any burden in her heart even if she killed them. But now, the fire attribute divine power was affected by the life flame and also had some degree of change. As a result, when she was sparring with others, she had to be careful. Otherwise, how bad would it be if she seriously injured her opponent? And this restricted fighting style also made people unable to enjoy to their heart's content. At the thought of this, Leng Ruoxue was vexed. "Hee hee. Girl, your worry is unnecessary. Whether it's your life flame or your fire attribute divine power, you can control them. After all, You're their master. Therefore, the situation you're thinking of will never happen. Moreover, after using fire attribute Shin power so many times, haven't you noticed that your flame is very spiritual? Tsang said with a smile as he saw through Ling Ruox's thoughts. Ugh. It seemed to be the case. She had been suspicious before, but now that she heard Tsang's words, she understood. It seemed that everything was the credit of her life flame. But what she was most happy about was hearing Tsang say that what she was worried about wouldn't happen. This way, the pressure in her heart would be less. Seeing that Ling Ruoxue wasn't going into a dead end, Tsang was relieved. At this moment, Ling Ruoxue suddenly felt the corner of her clothes sink. She lowered her head and saw the anxious little fox staring at her with her big, wet eyes and a face full of worry. The little fox didn't know what was going on with Ling Ruoxue's sudden daze. She didn't know that she was communicating with that scary cat, so she could only feel anxious. Fortunately, Ling Ruoxue finally gave it a response. Hence, it simply tugged at the corner of Ling Ruoxue's clothes and pulled her forward. However, the little fox's body was too petite, so it was practically hanging from Ling Ruoxue's body as it led the way. Ling Ruoxue laughed and placed it on her shoulder to prevent it from getting into a fight with Tsang again. As the saying goes, the higher you stand, the further you can see. The little fox, who was lying on Ling Ruoxue's shoulder, suddenly had a wider field of vision and pointed out the way with more interest. Everyone followed the direction the little fox pointed and went deeper and deeper. They didn't even know where they had walked to. However, after taking a peek at the calm and composed Tsang Ho, everyone calmed down. Since Tsang Du did not raise any suspicions, it meant that there was no problem inside. Otherwise, it would not have let Shuai come. Everyone was well aware of this, so they had even less to worry about. They did not know how long they had been walking for. All they knew was that the deeper they went, the darker it became. At the end, even Ling Ruoxu's flames could no longer light up the place. Furthermore, everyone's breathing was a little rushed, just like when they had descended the cliff. Chapter 2264, Help Seeking, 3. At this moment, Azure's halo enveloped everyone again, and everyone felt their breathing ease. They continued to move forward for a long time, and under the little fox's command, they finally arrived at their destination. It was a natural stone room, somewhat like a secret room. The walls were as smooth as jade, and the walls were faintly emitting a flowing light, looking extraordinarily beautiful. However, after entering the stone room, everyone felt that the smell of sulfur seemed to be even stronger. Although Dongfang Yu and the others did not know what was going on, no one asked. Instead, they all involuntarily looked at the snow-white little fox and waited for it to answer. However, the little fox didn't understand the implicit meaning of these adults. It only stared at the stone room with tears in its eyes, and no one knew what it was thinking. Upon seeing this, Ling Ruoxue and the rest were tactful and did not disturb the little fox. However, they could not help but guess that this should be the little fox's home, right? Or perhaps it was a place where it missed its family. After the little fox reproached herself for a while, she suddenly remembered Ling Ruoxue and the others. The little fox laughed embarrassedly and said in a baby voice, "Sister, I brought you here because I need your help with something." When the little fox said this, its face was extremely shy. It sneaked a glance at Ling Ruoxue and saw that she didn't look angry. Only then did the little fox relax its anxious heart. After all, it was supposed to take its sister and the others for a walk down the cliff, but it ended up bringing her sister here. This made it very embarrassed. Help with what? As long as it's within my means, just tell me. Ling Ruoxue chuckled. Her attitude was exceptionally warm. Who asked her to treat humans and beasts with two completely different attitudes? As long as the cute beastie's requests weren't excessive, she would basically satisfy them. After all, in her opinion, Beastie was a person who knew how to repay kindness. Although she didn't expect the beasties to repay her kindness, but it was still better than helping an ingrate, right? Seeing Ling Ruoxue's unhesitating and forthright attitude, the little fox felt even more embarrassed. After secretly glancing at Song, the little fox gathered her courage and said, I have a companion who is sick. Please save him, sister. What? When Len Ruoxua saw that the little fox did not explain clearly, the doubt in her beautiful eyes deepened. When she saw the doubt in Len Ruoxua's eyes, the little fox did not say anything and jumped down from Len Ruoxua's shoulder. Then, it touched the wall with its little claws and the smooth wall opened up. Seeing this, Len Ruoxua and the rest were stunned. They did not expect this stone chamber to have a mechanism. Then, everyone saw the little fox waving at them and following behind her, they walked into the door that was opened on the wall. After entering, everyone was shocked. Oh my God! How? How could this be possible? As far as they could see, there were all kinds of top-grade crystals. The colorful crystals were arranged in an orderly manner and embedded in the surrounding walls. They all emitted a faint 7-colored light and were unbelievably beautiful. After the shock, everyone did not know what to say. Especially when they heard the little fox say that she would give all these to Len Ruoxua, they were speechless. Wasn't Shue'er's luck a little too good? He could actually get so many top-grade crystals just by going down a cliff. One had to know that this was a top-grade item, not a high-grade, medium-grade, or even low-grade one. It was a top-grade item. In the divine realm, top-grade crystals were becoming rarer and rarer. More importantly, top-grade crystals were not cabbages. Even the top families couldn't take out so many at once. But these top-grade crystals in front of them were like cabbages in the market. That was because there were simply too many of them. However, once there were many things, they didn't seem so rare. Therefore, when everyone first saw these top-grade crystals, they were only a little surprised, but then they became calm and composed again. As a result, they were rather curious about the companion that the little fox had mentioned. Needless to say, these top-grade crystals were definitely the reward that the little fox had to pay Shue'er, and for the little fox to pay such a huge amount of money, its companion should be very important to it, right? Everyone's curiosity was piqued. After Len Ruoxua heard the little fox's words, she understood what the little fellow meant. However, she really didn't expect that this little fellow's emotional intelligence would be so high. He actually knew that he had to pay for asking for help. This was much better than many humans. But to her, since she had promised the little fellow that as long as it was something she could do, she would do her best, so these Jingshi were not that important to her. Thanks at the thought of this, Len Ruoxua bent down and picked up the little fox. She said lovingly, "Little guy, even if you didn't give me these top-grade crystals, I would still help you, as long as I can. Sister will definitely be able to help me." The little fox nodded her head with certainty. Seeing how determined the little fox was, Len Ruoxua instantly felt immense pressure. She really did not know where this little thing's confidence came from. However, she could not bear to disappoint this little fellow. Hence, she could only swallow the ugly words that she should say. She had wanted to tell her little fox not to expect too much. After all, she had not seen the patient yet. However, looking at the little fox's confident and determined look, she could not bring herself to say such a thing. "Take me to the patient." Len Ruoxua sighed helplessly. "Sister, the patient is there." The little fox pointed behind Len Ruoxua and everyone turned around at the same time. They happened to see a crystal platform slowly rising from the ground. Following that, everyone's eyes widened once again. Their mouths were half open in disbelief as they watched the scene before them. On the transparent crystal platform, there was a huge flower with a diameter of about 5 meters. However, at this time, the petals on the flower were somewhat withered and half drooped on the crystal platform. Anyone who saw it would know that the flower had lost a lot of vitality. When the little fox saw the flower, she cried and pounced on it, shouting, "Ancestor! Woo! I've found someone who can save you." Old ancestor. Didn't he say companions? Why did he become the ancestor? Everyone's faces were filled with question marks. However, when they saw the little fox bawling, they could only keep their questions to themselves and wait for the little fox to stop crying before listening to its explanation. The little fox cried for a while before she remembered that there were still humans around. She wiped her tears in embarrassment and said with a choked voice, "It's our companion, but in our hearts, it's our ancestor. In the past, it's always been taking care of us with great care. Otherwise, we wouldn't have had so many transformed elves. But we can't help it when it's sick." Woo-woo. As she spoke, the little fox started to cry again. This was also the greatest pain in the hearts of these elves. Although they usually tried not to show it, in fact, every elf was silently sad in their hearts. "What illness does it have?" Lenruashua gently caressed the flower petals that were bigger than a millstone and asked with a serious expression. "I don't know. The old ancestor fell ill suddenly." The little fox replied honestly. When she heard this, Lenruashua knew that this little fox only knew that the flower was sick, but she didn't know what caused it. If that was the case, it wouldn't be easy to deal with this. After all, even if a doctor were to treat a patient, it would be difficult to make a judgment without knowing the cause of the illness, especially when the patient's symptoms were not obvious. It was obvious that the petals had withered. However, she could not possibly think that it was caused by dehydration, right? At this moment, the curious Shen Nua and Luyue also walked forward and carefully observed the huge flower, but they found nothing. The main reason was that the petals had withered and the color of the petals was dark. Therefore, it was almost impossible to see the original appearance of the petals. However, according to their guess, the petals should be black in color. "Shwer, what did you see?" After a long while, Shen Nua could not help but ask as she looked at Lenruashua in anticipation. "No, I didn't. I don't even recognize this flower," Lenruashua said helplessly. She had asked Qing Ju about it, but he said that the damage to the flower was too severe. It was hard to tell from its appearance, but the species of this flower should be very precious. It was a treasure of the heaven and earth. However, when Lenruashua looked at the flower, she found it strange. Because she discovered that the center of the flower was slowly releasing poison, very similar to the poisonous fog at the waist of the cliff. Moreover, the poison in front of her seemed unremarkable, but the concentration was very high. But the strange thing was that they didn't show any signs of being poisoned. It could even be said that they didn't have any abnormalities at all. This was truly unbelievable. At the thought of this, Lenruashua couldn't help but turn her gaze to the little fox. She said gently, "Little guy, what's the background of your family's ancestor? Just tell me about it." "I don't know," the little fox said with a confused look. After she finished speaking, she lowered her head again. Ugh! Lenruashua was depressed. How could there be a junior who didn't know their own ancestor's background? In this case, how should she deal with the problem? "Then why are you so sure that I can help you?" Lenruashua couldn't help but ask after some thought. Upon hearing this, the little fox raised its head and stared unblinkingly at Lenruashua with its big black eyes. Then,